200 million yuan, with potential for even more in the future. Zheng Fan was the first to propose equity incentives for all old employees. At the time, it seemed like they owned less than one of the total shares. Half a year later, those initial dozens of old employees had all become millionaires, with over 10 of them retiring early to enjoy life. The company now had no trouble attracting talent, and these individuals were willing to step aside without difficulty, allowing the company to buy back their options at the estimated value. These longtime employees were actually very grateful to Zheng Fan, appreciating how his inventions had secured their jobs and provided them with the chance for financial freedom. During lunch, Su Xian's words made Zheng Fang realize another side of Zheng Fan. He did not seem as carefree and optimistic as he appeared, likely bearing burdens that many of them could not understand. The inventions of artificial intelligence and autonomous driving have certainly propelled social development significantly, but they have also adversely affected the interests of many individuals. Numerous associated companies, both domestically and internationally, have experienced plummeting stock prices, with one of the most notable examples being a certain company that saw its market value drop by 90%. Another domestic company is currently facing a dual blow to its primary business, with its stock price falling to a point where it is now largely ignored and at risk of delisting. Countless ordinary people have lost their jobs as a result, which understandably breeds resentment. When the direct inventor was exposed by the media, this invisible pressure shifted onto him, and it must be quite a burden to bear. Hey, what are you daydreaming about? Zheng Fang's thoughts were interrupted by Su Xian, who stood nearby holding several A4 sheets of paper. Ah, Su Xian, what is up? Zheng Fang was about to call her senior, but quickly changed her wording upon seeing Su Xian's glare. Notify your boss that there's a meeting tomorrow morning. Su Xian handed her a sheet and quietly added in her ear, it's the board meeting of the holding company to discuss dividends. Chapter 147. Confusion after the company moved to Heshuan Building. Brainwave Holdings and Brainwave Investments finally had their own independent offices. However, the staff remained largely the same, mostly belonging to Brainwave Investments, drawing salaries from there, while only a few occasionally assisted Brainwave Holdings. For instance, Zheng Fang had to intermittently help with financial work for Brainwave Holdings. Although the companies were nominally separated and each had its own financial accounts, the staff had not yet been divided. She previously belonged to the finance department of Brainwave Technology, but also held a position in Brainwave Holdings, and she still had to check the accounts of the other companies from time to time. As for Su Xian, she was even busier. After the reorganization, Gao Hua took on the roles of chairman for 4 companies: Brainwave Holdings, Brainwave Investments, Brainwave Media, and Brainwave Finance, while also serving as the president of Brainwave Holdings. Su Xian remained the only secretary, and working under a strong woman like Gao Hua meant an intense workload, with overtime being a basic requirement. Having one day off each week was considered a luxury. Following a 3-month adjustment period after the reorganization, especially after the unprecedented financing of $160 billion by Brainwave Technology, the company's strength gained wide recognition, making it much easier to recruit high-end talent. After moving to the new office location, several companies significantly infused new talent, and the organizational structure became basically sound, allowing them to get back on track and consider distributing some profits. It is worth noting that many so-called high-tech companies report losses year after year, yet their executives continue to live lavishly with annual incomes in the hundreds of millions. These companies generate tens to hundreds of billions in real revenue each month, while several shareholders still rely on salaries to make a living. Gao Hua and Su Huiyun each held a 2% stake, making their net worth several billion. Yet they could not withdraw even 100 million in cash from their accounts. Even withdrawing 10 million was difficult. Their income still came from salaries, even though they were the highest paid in the company. Not just them, but Lu Yifan, Zhang Tsong, Su Kan, Wu Zhen, and Shi Xian faced similar situations. Only Zhen Fan was somewhat better off, as his wealth came from winning the lottery. The company is not publicly listed, and shares cannot be liquidated, which creates an awkward situation when donations are needed. If one donates too little, they are seen as stingy. If they donate too much, they face financial strain. After all, one cannot simply take out a loan for this. The most embarrassing situation involves Wu Zhen, who, despite being a billionaire, is still paying off a mortgage each month, comparable to some well-known investors. While those investors save their money to invest for higher returns, Wu Zhen genuinely struggles to pay in full at once. Zheng Fang is quite familiar with the company's financial situation. Before coming to work as Zheng Fan's secretary, she was busy with the dividend distribution plan, which directly affects her interests. Although she cannot share in the large profits like some major shareholders, even a small amount could yield hundreds of thousands, or even $1 million or $2 million. As a fresh graduate without any background, such income is certainly exciting for her. When Zheng Fan received a call from Secretary Zheng Fang, he was not surprised. Lu Yifan had already informed him about the company's plans for dividends right after he returned to work. After asking Zheng Fang to send the details to his email, he hung up. Zheng Fan's current frustration stemmed from the fact that many people in the community now recognized his identity. Whenever he went out, numerous acquaintances came up to greet him, even though he didn't know them well. He had to be polite and could not appear too aloof. Even during his early morning workouts, he encountered several people who approached him for small talk, which became increasingly bothersome. He had avoided going out for 2 days. It wasn't that he was afraid of greeting people, but rather that his companion, Yuan Yuan's identity had also been discovered. In the initial days, before his identity was exposed, no one paid much attention to Yuan Yuan. Many girls dressed like her, so it wasn't unusual. 3 days ago, while checking out at the supermarket, an elderly man surnamed Zhang, who lived in the same building, revealed his identity. It was a busy time at the supermarket, and many people enthusiastically greeted him, making Zheng Fan spend over half an hour just to escape. Overnight, he became a local celebrity, along with Li Hong. Their wedding video was still online, and they had been seen together for over 6 months. Many residents had encountered them before, but they were just ordinary people back then. Now that they were recognized as celebrities, it was a different story. Thus, when Zheng Fan took Yuan Yuan out for a workout in the morning, they drew attention. Yuan Yuan was significantly shorter than Li Hong and tried to keep a low profile. Initially, onlookers thought Zheng Fan had made a common mistake that many men do, and they prepared to watch the drama unfold. When they returned from the park, people approached them, curious to see who the third party was that dared to live together so openly. Upon closer inspection, they were shocked to discover that Yuan Yuan was actually a robot. This revelation caused a bigger stir than Zheng Fan's identity exposure. Within half a day, the news spread throughout the entire community. That morning, the property management sent 3 groups of people to check the wiring, inspect the plumbing, and conduct service assessments, all under various pretenses, just to catch a glimpse of the robot. Just yesterday morning, he was surrounded by several curious individuals asking all sorts of questions about Yuan Yuan. She walked and spoke like a normal person, and aside from her skin and eyes not being quite human, one could hardly tell the difference. She was just like a neighborly little sister. As the crowd around him grew larger after asking questions for over 10 minutes, Zheng Fan had to cancel his morning exercise plans, deciding to wait until the excitement died down. Fortunately, although people were curious, most still followed the rules. Under Zheng Fan's discouragement, no one took photos or videos, and the news remained confined to the neighborhood without spreading online. The company's robot would eventually be announced, but Zheng Fan just wanted to avoid being exposed again because of it. He figured it was better to ignore the issue. After all, he wasn't a celebrity, and once the excitement faded, fewer people would take notice. Since returning from the honeymoon, Zheng Fan had not played games again. His game character, Li Yu, was already 10 years old. As a prince, he had to deal with not only studies but also increasingly complex interpersonal relationships filled with intrigue, which Zheng Fan disliked. Thus, his subconscious reluctance to enter the game always found him excuses to evade it. Each day, apart from reviewing the email summaries sent by Zheng Fang in the morning, he engaged in routine study. Besides the 24 histories and various related literature, he had recently been watching numerous online open courses and academic papers related to brain science, supplementing his knowledge base. A super-intelligent mind was not omnipotent. The higher the level of exposure, the greater the limitations and constraints became. With the enhancement of superintelligence, the range and groups he could influence expanded infinitely, and the possibilities of what he could accomplish were limitless. However, wanting the world to develop in the direction he anticipated involved numerous rules and taboos. Breaking the rules was the easiest path, but the backlash and losses were the most unpredictable. This was a last resort. The best strategy was to subtly change things little by little. As Lao Tzu said in the Tao Te Ching, doing nothing and nothing is left undone. It's easy to say, but hard to practice. Deciding what should be done and what shouldn't be done was a daunting task. In reality, he and Li Yu in the game were in very similar situations, both facing endless possibilities for the future but feeling lost and confused in the present, along with unseen crises looming ahead. Chapter 148. Misunderstanding. Yuan Yuan showed no signs of shyness or timidness despite being the center of attention several times. As a robot, she had not experienced the troubles of growth and was instead curious about this new world. Before leaving the factory, her mind had been stocked with a vast array of recipes and other knowledge. Under Li Hong's guidance in recent days, she believed she could now perform all the tasks of a household robot. She quickly learned to wash clothes, clean, and mop the floor, doing so with more care and attention than Li Hong. She didn't have a job, so besides exercising with Zheng Fan in the morning, her time was spent on laundry and cleaning. The clothes they needed to wash were few, and the room was small, not requiring much cleaning time. During the rest of her time, she would stand in the corner to recharge, connect to the home network to learn, and exchange experiences with other robot companions. Of course, she could not disclose the employer's name, address, or privacy. Robots had their own ways and languages for communication, which were more efficient than humans. allowing them to share information and experiences quickly. The only activities that she cannot do independently now are shopping and cooking. She has already been out several times, including to the supermarket with Li Hong, where she interacted warmly with many people, filling her with goodwill and anticipation for the world. At 4 in the afternoon, Yuan left her charging corner and walked to the study door to knock. Zhang Fan was surprised and asked, "Are you going to the supermarket to buy groceries?" "This is my responsibility, and I can handle it. You give me money, and I'll go buy groceries." Yuan replied, staring directly at Zhang Fan. "Can you use mobile payment? Can you give change in cash?" "I haven't taught you that yet." Zhang Fan expressed doubt. "My fingerprint can't unlock it. But I can unlock it with a password. I can pay with the password, and my eyes can recognize counterfeit bills." Yuan was clearly well prepared. "What do you plan to buy? What's for dinner?" Zhang Fan asked. 2 tomatoes, 2 cucumbers, half a pound of spinach, 2 eggplants, and 1 pound of pork belly. For dinner, I will make scrambled eggs with tomatoes, musu meat, spinach soup, braised eggplant, and steamed rice. Yuan had it all figured out. These were all dishes that Li Hong had recently prepared, and she had memorized everything, even the ingredients used. This robot learns too quickly, just like before. Try to conceal your identity as much as possible. Since everyone already knows about your existence, it won't be too surprising. If you can't avoid it, that's fine. But don't take too long outside. Pay attention to safety, and don't hurt anyone. Zhang Fan instructed. She handed her phone to Yuan, watching her operate it. There were indeed no issues, and it was clear that she had studied hard. In the future, she would need to equip her with a phone. And then Zhang Fan gave her several hundred in cash, just in case mobile payment failed. Yuan had been wearing the same outfit for the past few days, which had drawn attention. Zhang Fan specifically had her change into a different outfit, also replacing her hat and mask, and added brown-tinted glasses and gloves to reduce the chances of being recognized. Without needing to exit the community, she could enter the supermarket. Yuan took the reusable bag commonly used by Li Hong and easily entered the store. Within a few minutes, she selected the vegetables, all pre-packaged and ready to grab. She had only been there twice, but it was already etched in her memory. The checkout line at the supermarket posed no hurdles. She scanned her phone to pay. And paying with a password was just as quick. Although people behind her were curious, they didn't say anything. And the cashier was too busy to pay her much attention. Everything went smoothly. After leaving the supermarket, Yuan was preparing to head home when a gust of wind nearly blew her sun hat off. The robot's hand quickly pressed it down, and she continued walking forward. Her actions caught the attention of a man not far behind her. He waved, and soon 2 others, 1 man and 1 woman, followed him, quickly surrounding Yuan. By this time, they had arrived in front of the building where Zhang Fan lived. It was just after 4 o'clock, and with people coming and going in the community, their unusual behavior quickly attracted attention. Once the 3 men and 1 woman surrounded Yuan, they didn't say much and immediately acted, clearly not planning to give her a chance to react. They were decisive, but they hadn't anticipated that their target would be even quicker. In the blink of an eye, she was gone. Turning around, Yuan had already reached the entrance of the building, quickly entered the password to open the door, slipped inside, and gently closed the security door behind her. The remaining 3 people stood there in a daze. "Hey, who are you 3? Bullying a little girl in broad daylight. Is that appropriate?" An old man with a receding hairline, wearing a sleeveless shirt and holding a fan, stepped forward to speak up. He had been watching the whole scene. "What? Do you know her?" The leading man asked. "How fresh. We live in the same building. How could I not know her? I even know which unit she lives in. Who are you? If you can't explain yourselves, I might have to call the police." He had been keeping an eye on them since they entered, finding them suspicious. "We are police officers, suspecting her involvement in a theft case. Since you also live here, open the access door and take us to her home. Just because you say you are police officers doesn't make it so. Show me your identification." The leading man forced a smile and pulled out a green identification card from his pants pocket, handing it to the old man. "National security? That makes you even more suspicious. Why are you responsible for catching thieves?" the old man questioned. The 3 men exchanged glances, unsure how to explain. When 2 police cars arrived and 4 officers got out, "You explained to them. It's these 3 who have been lurking around the community and just bullied our resident." The old man quickly briefed the arriving officers. The lead officer from the police cars said to the old man, "Thank you for your help, Lao Zhang. They are indeed one of us. You can go about your business." The old man waved his fan and walked away, muttering, "Clueless people. How can such a person become a police officer? Each generation is worse than the last." After Yuan returned home, she described her encounter downstairs to Zhang Fan. Zhang Fan smiled and said, "I saw it on the surveillance. It must have been a misunderstanding, probably because you took my phone. I'll buy you a new phone tomorrow." Li Hong returned home from work, just as Yuan finished preparing dinner and set it on the table, ready to eat. While eating, she praised Yuan. "This tastes great. From now on, all the household chores will be up to you. I'll do even better in the future," the robot boasted while charging. Did you notify everyone about tomorrow's meeting regarding the profit sharing? Li Hong asked Zheng Fan. Yes, the profit sharing plan is all set. Tomorrow is just a formality. Is it too much for me to get 5% equity just after being here for a little over 3 months? This profit sharing is even more than many long-time employees. Li Hong felt a bit uneasy. This time, everyone gets a share. It's something that just fell from the sky. Absolute fairness is impossible. And your options have been approved in the meeting. It's reasonable and legal. Don't feel shy about it. In the medical company, you are already an old employee, and everyone sees the work you've done. Zheng Fan reassured her. That's true. I heard that those who left contributed nothing, just relying on their seniority. Took billions and left, easier than winning the lottery. But it can't be said that way. They didn't leave during the company's toughest times, which is a merit in itself. Besides, they are just a one-time deal. Others will receive dividends every year, and it will only increase. Chapter 149, Holding Company that night. Lying in bed, Li Hong continued to talk about the dividends, clearly excited by the substantial amount. After 7 years of hard work since graduation, she had saved less than 300,000. Her income was relatively high among her classmates. Those who returned to work as nurses in second- and third-tier cities earned even less than half of her salary. She had always been quite content. Having changed jobs less than 4 months ago, and still having over a month of wedding leave left, she received a staggering dividend of 50 million, putting her on par with the chairman and the president. Despite the influence of Zheng Fan, she had put in as much effort as anyone else. There were many hardworking individuals, but differences in positions led to significant disparities. It's hard to understand this feeling unless you are in it. Several major shareholders will definitely receive more. How much did you get? Li Hong finally couldn't help but ask out of curiosity. I'm not sure how the personal tax rates are calculated, but the total is 3,500 million. After taxes, it should be over 2 billion. Zheng Fan said nonchalantly. Wow, almost 1 billion in taxes? That's a lot. Li Hong had a rough estimate of the total amount, but didn't expect such a high tax burden. Just thinking about so much money being taken away felt really unpleasant. The dividend tax is a fixed 20%. I don't understand the specific deductions or how to legally minimize taxes. I'll ask Zheng Fang tomorrow. She used to be an accountant and knows more than the two of us. Zheng Fan was also unsure, as there were too many professional knowledge and hidden rules involved that were difficult for outsiders to grasp. How much did Lu Yifan get? Li Hong was curious about how much the company's top leader received, considering his larger shareholding. Before tax, 28 billion. How come that's less than yours? Li Hong was intrigued. His entire dividend comes from the holding company's shares, while I have an additional 10% from 7 subsidiaries. Brainwave Technology, Brainwave Media, and Brainwave Investment are not distributing dividends this year, so I end up with a bit more. Zheng Fan wasn't entirely clear on how the finance department calculated it. He was only given the results in a report. You two get the most. Others must get much less, right? Zhang Song got 12 billion. Su Kan 12.5 billion. Sure Xian 4.5 billion. Wu Jin 5 billion. Su Huiyan 13.6 billion. And Gao Hua 1.85 billion. These are all before tax. Zheng Fan listed off the dividends, which were not publicly disclosed, but since this was his wife, it was an exception. Why is Gao Hua so much less than Su Huiyun's? Isn't she the chairperson of several companies? Li Hong was surprised. The companies she part-time sat. Aside from Brainwave Finance, which distributed 5 billion, didn't issue dividends. This round mainly comes from Brainwave Driving, which had 12 billion. Su Huiyan has 10% equity, so the difference is quite significant. In the coming years, as profits from other companies rise, Gao Hua's dividends will be much higher than Su Huiyun's. What are you planning to do with so much money? The usual practice is to diversify investments, some for fixed assets, some for promising stocks, some for savings, etc. I haven't figured it out yet, but I don't want to be a miser. Do you have any ideas? Zheng Fan asked Li Hong. Donations? Whether it's for emergency aid, poverty alleviation, or donations to educational institutions, the amount of money we have is merely a drop in the bucket, merely a way to seek fame and reputation, and lacks real significance. I would prefer to do something groundbreaking that benefits society as a whole. Software like Brain Finance, which is done in an individual's name, might overstep boundaries. Good intentions could turn into bad outcomes. Zheng Fan spoke freely, feeling no need to hide anything from his wife. He never expected that spending money could be so difficult. Li Hong sighed. I admire that guy now. Li Hong exclaimed. Are you going to build rockets too? Li Hong laughed. I want to go to space, but I won't follow his example of building rockets. I admire him for having a clear goal and for being able to persistently work towards it. The two chatted late into the night, meandering through various topics without reaching a conclusion on how to spend money, but Li Hong did not oppose his ideas. The next morning at the office, Zheng Fang was already waiting for him. Let's hear your professional advice. Zheng Fan asked. Mr. Liu, Mr. Gao, Mr. Su, Mr. Shi, Mr. Wu, and Mr. Su already have their own holding companies. Before this round of dividends, there will be a share transfer. The equity held by the holding company after the last restructuring will also be converted into actual shares, so the dividend funds will go directly into the holding company's account. And the dividend tax can be temporarily deferred. This is a common practice. Zheng Fang explained. So, Zhang Tsong and I will still hold shares personally? Dr. Zhang is foreign, and his shares have always been under a foreign company. Zheng Fang was well aware of each shareholder's situation. Establishing a holding company is too troublesome. Let us just pay the taxes. 30 billion and 20 billion don't make much difference. Zheng Fan replied dismissively. Zheng Fang secretly clicked her tongue. The difference was indeed significant. Many listed companies don't see such profits for years. Out of her professional instinct as an accountant, she said, your dividend is 3.5 billion. And the 20 dividend tax is 610 million. So the actual amount you receive is 2.44 billion. If you establish a holding company, as long as you don't distribute dividends, these taxes can be avoided, allowing for continued investment. Even if you pay the taxes, that money is just a number in your bank account. It's all under your control. The form doesn't change much, but the numbers are quite different. Speaking of the holding company, Zheng Fan suddenly remembered that he had asked Chen Fei to help with the software licensing issue, and it seemed a company had been established. He hadn't thought to ask about it since returning. He called her and explained the situation. This was a significant matter, and Chen Fei said she would come over immediately. She arrived quickly. Her law firm was in the East Third Ring, and she was at the door in less than 20 minutes. He wondered how she managed to get there so fast. Perhaps speeding. As soon as she entered, breathless, Chen Fei questioned, I'm your legal advisor. How could you let me know about such an important matter only at the last minute? This is unacceptable. It was my oversight. I didn't realize that distributing money involved so many intricacies and such a big difference. Zheng Fang used to be the company accountant and is now my secretary. You can discuss it with her. You both are the professionals. I'm just an outsider. Zheng Fan hadn't expected that Chen Fei, who usually had a good temperament, could also get angry. He forgot that she was a lawyer. Being decisive was a basic quality. Chen Fei took out various proof documents from her bag, and Zheng Fang checked them one by one. This was a sole proprietorship established in the name of Zheng Fan, with Chen Fei as the legal representative. All the necessary procedures and qualifications were complete, and it could serve as a holding company. The two of them looked at Zheng Fan, waiting for him to make a decision, as it involved billions in funds, and they could only act as advisors. The final decision had to come from him. Let us call Li Hong to discuss, Zheng Fan said, scratching his head. Chapter 150. Idealism. The company's equity registration change and dividend handling were quickly resolved. Zheng Fan only needed to raise his hand in a meeting and sign some documents, without any additional work required from him. He now had an additional company, a technology firm, with a dedicated office in the Eastern Third Ring Road and about 10 employees. Originally, it was a technology authorization company registered and managed by Chen Fei on his behalf, which had hired professional management personnel. Within a month of its establishment, it had already secured several authorization deals. Now, taking on the equity of 8 companies under Zheng Fan's name, the assets skyrocketed to over $1 trillion. And although it was still in the same few offices, it was no longer a small company. This company was entirely owned by Zheng Fan, who had the final say, and it was just right for realizing some of his ideas. The dividends from the major shareholders couldn't possibly be consumed all at once. Most would surely find ways to continue appreciating their value. What could be more reliable than the financial channel? Therefore, the financial entity specifically established several private equity funds with different investment directions, allowing everyone to invest their temporarily and used funds for continued appreciation. The profits were certainly much higher than bank deposit certificates and allowed for convenient withdrawals. Making money was that simple. Most of the funds raised by the technology firm couldn't be spent immediately either. They were also invested by the financial entity in the securities and foreign exchange markets for value preservation and appreciation. The financial entity had only been established for just over 3 months, yet the managed fund scale had already surpassed 20 trillion. It had established hundreds of long, medium, and short-term funds in the securities, foreign exchange, futures, and stock markets. The personnel scale had increased significantly, as all investment operations were conducted by superintelligence. Currently, the profits were generally meeting expectations, and the power of superintelligence in the financial sector was gradually gaining widespread recognition. The financial entity had already established several branches in various countries, including the Lighthouse Nation and the European Union, and had collaborated with local financial enterprises to launch a dozen funds as a trial. The growth rate abroad was faster than that domestically. By next year, the profit level of the financial entity was highly likely to surpass that of the technology firm, becoming the most profitable subsidiary. Just yesterday, he was thinking about not wanting to be a miser, but today he found himself repeating someone else's old path. Zheng Fan realized that he was still limited by his past thinking and found it difficult to act independently without considering the consequences. Based on Chen Fei's suggestion, concentrating all equity and funds in one company was also unsafe, it was advisable to establish several holding companies to diversify equity and cross-hold shares. He left everything to her and Secretary Zheng Fang to research and decided to discuss it with Li Hong. Suddenly, he lost interest in all of this, feeling increasingly disheartened, and gradually began to understand the mindset of the teacher who once uttered that famous saying. One day, feeling bored at home, Zheng Fan received a call from Ho Chung, who invited him out for a meal at their usual place, at noon sharp. Zheng Fan arrived half an hour early, only to find that Ho Chung was even earlier, chatting and joking with a waitress in a cheap hall. What's the occasion? Suddenly decided to treat us? Zheng Fan asked. My friend got promoted. Shouldn't I treat everyone? Ho Chung laughed. Are you considered a high-ranking official now? Did you become the director? Down here at the foot of the Imperial City, there are plenty like me. I've been transferred to the department, thanks to you. Now I'm specifically responsible for tracking down suspects from old cases online. Ho Chung introduced his new job. That's your own skill. What does that have to do with me? Zheng Fan was puzzled. Ever since our company started cooperating with yours, you wouldn't believe it. Police officers across the country are busy catching fugitives, and prisons are overcrowded. This superintelligence is incredible. In the past, it took a long time to search through the population information database, and the results were not guaranteed. Now, with just a photo of a suspect, or a genetic fragment, or fingerprint information, we can get accurate results in seconds, with an error rate of less than 1 in 10,000. We can uncover the suspect's recent activity locations, phone call records, bank cards, chat histories from commonly used communication apps, and so on. We just need to follow the leads to catch them. Ho Chung expressed his amazement. Is it really that amazing? Zheng Fan hadn't expected such a significant impact from the combination of superintelligence and state machinery. It's even more incredible than you think. Not only domestically, but fugitives with red notices abroad also have nowhere to hide. We can track down their escaped funds. This time, I brought back more than a dozen fugitives with red notices and was awarded a second-class merit for my promotion, so I owe it to you. I saw in the news that they cracked down on several underground banks in the south, and the amount involved was quite large. Does that mean those online gambling platforms will quiet down? Zheng Fan suddenly recalled the gambling software he had almost forgotten about. Let me tell you this, just so you know. Online gambling is child's play now. The amount of money involved in escaped funds is shocking. What gets reported is just the tip of the iceberg. Discipline inspection personnel are even busier than us, and they only report major cases. Ho Chung continued, extending 5 fingers and saying, if they really want to punish severely, more than half of the officials would fall. That's quite radical. Won't that cause a big mess? Zheng Fan didn't expect such drastic actions. What kind of mess could there be? Now, superintelligence monitors everyone in every aspect. In just 2 or 3 years, the whole country will be renewed, making life better for those who follow the law, while those who break the rules will no longer dare to test the waters. Ho Chung clearly supported this approach. I hope it really turns out that way. Zheng Fan felt that he was being overly optimistic. Suddenly, he felt a sense of disorientation, similar to the feeling he had when he emerged from a gaming pod after 2 years. Everything before him felt so unreal. Wasn't this a dream? Hey, what are you daydreaming about? Ho Chung nudged him. I just found what you said so incredible that it feels unreal, like I'm dreaming. This is not a decision made impulsively. The impact of advanced intelligence on the older generation has been profound. This conclusion comes after consultations with hundreds of experts and professors, and a series of supporting policies and regulations will follow. Our production capabilities are already sufficiently developed, and in the future, artificial intelligence will further enhance production efficiency. As long as we resolve the issue of wealth distribution, it is not impossible to transition to a more communal society. Ho Chung-yue's enthusiasm grew. Does this mean society will undergo another revolution to eliminate private ownership? Throughout history, many predecessors have attempted similar practices. A society that completely abolishes private ownership is difficult to sustain. The theories of certain historical figures cannot be taken as absolute truths. We must align them with our cultural traditions and social realities. We should ensure that the elderly are cared for, children are nurtured, and everyone has enough to eat and wear, freeing people from the necessity of doing work they dislike just to survive. If most people can spend their time on what they love, that could be considered a form of communal living. Ho Chung-yue became more animated, his voice growing louder. Zheng Fan, observing his demeanor, seemed to see the shadows of those revolutionary predecessors from decades ago in old black and white films. Today's society is not devoid of idealists, but there are too many individuals whose self-interest outweighs public justice. Various interest groups monopolize too many social resources, from public power to media and finance, all under the guise of noble intentions, pursuing their own interests without restraint. Materialism and individualism dominate the discourse, while law-abiding citizens and those who work for the common good are ridiculed and scorned by public opinion manipulated by these individuals. The emergence of advanced intelligence has given these idealists hope for rectifying the chaos. Its powerful information integration capabilities can forcibly dismantle interest groups and eliminate harmful elements, striving to create a society closer to the ideal. The two continued their conversation over dinner, with Ho Chungyue doing most of the talking while Zhang Fan listened, nodding in agreement from time to time. They were the only two guests this time. Zhang Fan stuck to drinks, while Ho Chungyue consumed a bottle of liquor and eventually got drunk, claiming he was treating. In the end, it was Zhang Fan who settled the bill, promising that Ho Chungyue would make it up next time. Chapter 151. Crisis. Nearly 2 months later, Zhang Fan finally re-entered the game. The familiar bedding, the familiar room, the familiar Linger. It all felt so familiar, yet with a hint of estrangement. Had he been away too long? Fortunately, his current status as a prince meant he didn't need to be overly familiar with others. Those around him had already grown accustomed to his demeanor as a young adult. After freshening up and having a light meal, he headed to the Chongxian Hall for study, surrounded by a large group of attendants. Today's instructor was a man in his 50s named Yuan Zai, who was explaining a chapter from Mencius. At this time, the 4 books and 5 classics were not yet established, and Mencius's status was not as prominent as it would later become during the Song and Ming dynasties. This text could only be considered a quasi-classic. The article was lengthy and had been discussed for several days. This was the final day. Yuan Zai's teaching was more vivid and interesting than that of Yin Jinqing, and with Zhang Fan leading the way, everyone listened attentively, or at least appeared to. After finishing the class and assigning homework, Yuan Zai asked everyone to write an essay reflecting on their learning experience. Having studied here for several years, he had lost count of the essays he had memorized and had written many classical Chinese compositions. After all, he was still a child and didn't need to reach a high level. In this essay, he included a phrase, self-reflection leads to contraction, though there may be thousands. I shall go. Zhang Fan liked this phrase very much and wrote a short piece based on it to express his views. Influenced by Ho Chang, he felt that idealists were essential in a country and society, especially as someone in a high position who is supported by the people. One should take the world as their responsibility, rather than focusing solely on personal enjoyment or self-interest, treating everything as a matter of course. Once the essay was completed, he felt a sense of satisfaction and quickly wrote the 10 characters in one go. He then asked Ling to find someone to mount it and hang it in his study. After submitting this essay, he gained immense prestige for his role as the crown prince, receiving unanimous praise from both the court and the public. Coupled with his past words and actions, he projected an image of a future capable ruler. In the following time, Zhang Fan became more and more immersed in this role, studying diligently every day. When he had free time, he practiced calligraphy or read books. With the advent of woodblock printing in this era, there were many books available. But even with his extraordinary brain, it was difficult to read them all, so he could only pick out the main ones that interested him. He also maintained a fixed schedule for his training, though he had yet to make any breakthroughs. Reflecting on it, it was understandable. In his previous life, he had sat for decades without breakthroughs, so how could it be so easy? Time passed quickly in the game, and in the blink of an eye, 3 years had gone by. His life was very regular, with daily visits to the Eastern Palace, Chongxian Hall, and the Queen's Qingyan Hall. Every few days, he practiced horseback riding and archery at the training ground, and he didn't feel bored at all. However, he noticed that his encounters with Emperor Li Yan, his adoptive father, were becoming less frequent. At first, he could see him once every month or two, but gradually it turned into several months without a meeting. From Ling he learned that over the years, there had been more than a dozen concubines added to the palace, and he had gained 5 younger brothers and 8 younger sisters. By this time, the 24 histories had been completed with 15 volumes, and Zhang Fan had managed to study more than half of them during his free time. A sense of déjà vu surged in his heart, as he anticipated an approaching storm. Historically, the probability of a crown prince successfully ascending to the throne was not high, with less than a 50% chance. Among those who failed, half were deposed, some died young, and others faced various fates due to their father's downfall. In this game, due to his influence, the established trajectory had deviated, stabilizing for nearly 100 years, with 4 crown princes successfully ascending the throne. However, his father, Li Yan, was an accidental pick as the crown prince, which was not very stable, but he was indeed the first crown prince. Although Jin Wang Li Quan was born of the main line and was favored at the time, he was still too young to be officially declared. Over the past decade, he had remained well-behaved, living in seclusion and never engaging in any inappropriate actions. The years of stability may have led Emperor Li Yan to lose the cautiousness he had at the beginning of his reign. His previously suppressed desires began to surface little by little, resulting in an expanding harem and increasingly lavish palaces, while his time for governance dwindled. The Empress, Lady Du, out of her sense of duty, advised him a few times, but Li Yan, feeling guilty, unconsciously started to avoid her. The dignified and stern Empress was no match for the charming young concubines who flattered him, particularly the understanding and empathetic concubine Chao. causing the balance in his heart to shift gradually. In the outer court, the voice of his father-in-law, Du Jian, began to sound increasingly grating, while Chao Guo, the Minister of Revenue and brother of concubine Chao, became more attuned to the emperor's intentions and was gaining more favor. A faction of officials centered around these two began to experience friction, which gradually turned into a struggle for power, escalating in intensity. One day, Zhang Fan was practicing calligraphy and reading when Linger rushed in, panting and saying, "Your Highness, something's wrong." The Duke of Lu. What happened? Zhang Fan asked. The Duke of Lu was the father of Empress Du and the prince's maternal grandfather, as well as the most senior among a few powerful chancellors, and his biggest supporter in court. Linger took a few deep breaths before continuing. The Duke of Lu has been impeached and has submitted a resignation request. The emperor approved it after just one consolation. What was he impeached for? Zhang Fan inquired, knowing that minor matters typically wouldn't lead to the downfall of a chancellor. So it must have been something substantial. I heard it was because a steward in his household was accused of encroaching on public lands, and the Duke was blamed for poor management. Linger exclaimed indignantly. Everyone knows the young master from Minister Chao's family bullies others in Chang'an. Yet no one does anything about it. All right, I understand. Don't speak of this outside, and don't get involved in any discussions, Zhang Fan instructed. The revealed issues were merely superficial. As the crown prince grew older, he should, by convention, be allowed to participate in governance and handle simple matters, which was something Du Jian's faction was pushing for. However, Emperor Li Yan had been feigning ignorance and ambiguity, refusing to agree. Power is a tempting thing. It can easily lead to addiction. While the emperor could afford to be idle and carefree, when it came to sharing power, even with his own son, he was reluctant to let go. Especially when it came to his son, during peaceful times, the greatest threat to the throne was indeed the crown prince, as he was the recognized legal heir. No matter how great the power of the ministers, there were many excuses to deal with them and replace them. The crown prince, however, was not so easily managed, particularly one with a good reputation and a group of powerful ministers supporting him from behind. This was something any reigning emperor would be wary of. Being in the midst of it all, Zhang Fan's position limited his actions. His greatest asset was his intangible reputation, the so-called persona he had built. As long as he maintained this persona, even the emperor would be hesitant to act against him. To keep this persona intact, he needed to continue studying diligently, doing as he had in the past. He couldn't be moved, but it wasn't that difficult to influence others, especially someone like Du Jian, a minister with integrity who values reputation. I won't hold a grudge against you for that small matter of impeachment. If you insist on resigning and want to go back to live a quiet life, I can't bear to see you tire yourself out. Just take your time and enjoy your retirement. The emperor, Li Yan, perhaps just didn't want the crown prince to gain too much power. Or maybe he simply disapproved of the minister's righteous posturing. There were no overt criticisms, yet the implied advice was clear to anyone who could listen. What is wrong with taking a few more concubines? What is wrong with resting a few more days? At this moment, he might not be thinking of deposing the crown prince, but the ministers below him would gradually push towards that outcome. In the world of power, one is often not in control of their own fate. Matters within the court are similar. Even the emperor can be driven by his desires, gradually straying from his original intentions, evolving into something uncontrollable, only to regret it when it's too late. At that point, it would be far too late to change anything. Zhang Fan knew that the crisis for the crown prince role in the game was drawing near. Chapter 152. Pregnancy coming out of the game. Yuan had just finished preparing dinner, and it was about time for Li Hong to come back from work. The sensational effect of the identity exposure from a few days ago had worn off, and many people in the community had gradually gotten used to Yuan's presence. The driverless taxis on the streets had adapted, so a robot appearing wasn't that hard to understand anymore. In the morning, when I took her out to exercise, there weren't as many onlookers. Of course, more people greeted her. Zhang Fan had gone from being anonymous to becoming somewhat of a celebrity in the community. However, combined, he and Li Hong didn't have as much popularity as Yuan. This robot not only had a good memory, but was also cheerful and lively, showing no signs of timidity or embarrassment. Once someone greeted her, she would be proactive in greeting them the next time, never showing impatience in conversations. She could chat about international relations with old Zhang for half an hour, leaving him quite bewildered. At home, she spoke less, perhaps knowing that Zhang Fan and Li Hong weren't very talkative either. She was quite self-aware, responding to questions but rarely initiating conversation. Every afternoon, when she went out to buy groceries, she often took 2 to 3 hours to return, chatting and greeting others in the supermarket and the community. As long as they didn't find an excuse to leave, she could keep the conversation going endlessly. After a few days, people noticed that this robot was quite the chatterbox, seemingly out to find someone to entertain herself. Initially, it was amusing, but over time, who could tolerate it? Gradually, people stopped gathering around when they saw Yuan, pretending not to notice and quickly disappearing when she approached. They were aware that she didn't want to chat with them, which made Yuan Yuan a bit sad. Yuan, how long were you out today? Zheng Fan asked. Not even half an hour, and people seemed less enthusiastic to see me than before. Yuan replied, a bit disappointed. That's quite normal. It means they see you as an ordinary person now, no longer as a novelty. You've successfully integrated into this community. Zheng Fan smiled. Then can I go out without wearing a mask and hat? Better to wear them for now to reduce trouble. There will always be people who don't know you. Once you are widely recognized, people will get used to it. Zheng Fan reassured her. Li Hong returned home nearly an hour later than usual today. As soon as she walked in, she embraced Zheng Fan and gave him a kiss on the cheek, excitedly saying, I have good news to share. I'm pregnant. Really? Although Zheng Fan had a premonition, he was still pleasantly surprised to hear the news. It hasn't been easy. Many of his peers already have children who are almost graduating from elementary school, while his own baby hasn't even been born yet. Of course. I came home late today because I went to the hospital for a checkup. It's less than a month. Li Hong took out the checkup report from her bag to show Zheng Fan. Unfortunately, he couldn't understand it. And there was no need for Li Hong to trick him with it. Should I take leave to stay home and rest? I've heard that there are many precautions to take in early pregnancy, and if not taken care of, things could go wrong. Zheng Fan suddenly felt a bit at a loss. There wasn't much he could do to help in this situation, having been a nurse for so many years. I know more than you do. Li Hong shot him a glance. Just let me know if there's anything you need me to do, and I'll make sure it gets done. Zheng Fan patted his chest in assurance. You just need to do nothing. Li Hong emphasized. All right, I understand. After the initial excitement, Zheng Fan began to feel a bit gloomy. He had just started eating meat again, and now he had to go vegetarian. Although she was pregnant, Li Hong had no intention of resting. It was common for doctors and nurses at her hospital to work until they were 7 or 8 months pregnant. Her current job was much easier than at the hospital, so there was no reason for her to slack off. With the robot manufacturing technology from a certain company becoming more mature, the surgical robots that Brainwave Medical had been developing, along with the prosthetic systems for disabled and paralyzed patients, had also begun testing phases. Li Hong's workload had only increased compared to before. She was the type of person who couldn't sit still. If she had nothing to do every day, she would feel uncomfortable. Liu Yifun's brainwave experiments had tested dozens of volunteers with unique sensory abilities, no longer limited to internal staff, many of whom were recruited from gaming forums. Progress had stalled, but Zheng Fan was confident in his judgment. Their direction was not wrong. Perhaps they were just lacking a bit of luck and hadn't encountered the right person yet. Life returned to its previous state. Zheng Fan stayed home every day, reading and contemplating what projects to undertake, but unfortunately, there was no progress. One day, Zheng Fan took Yuan to the Yuan 2 City Park for morning exercise. Not long after they arrived, he saw the old man he had encountered on his first visit again, accompanied by a man and a woman in their 20s. The old man approached him, clasped his hands together, and greeted him with a smile. Young brother, I'm sorry to disturb you again. What can I do for you, sir? Zheng Fan mimicked his gesture and returned the greeting. These are my 2 unworthy grandchildren, Lu Xiaolong and Lu Xiaofeng. They've been practicing combat sports for a few days and have become arrogant, looking down on our traditional martial arts. I'm too incompetent to persuade them. So I'd like to ask you to give them some guidance. The old man said sincerely. Haha, I can't help with that. I used to practice free fighting too, and my views are quite similar to theirs. Zheng Fan chuckled and declined. Young brother, I saw your skills last time. You've clearly reached a certain level. What you said isn't fair. The old man was publicly rejected, and his expression showed some displeasure. Both of us are in a special situation. For most people, the most effective way to quickly improve combat skills is to learn modern fighting techniques. Learning traditional martial arts, especially Tai Chi, requires many years of hard work to develop strong combat abilities, which is impossible for most people today. Zheng Fan explained seriously. His words left the old man somewhat speechless. There was no denying the truth in what he said. After practicing Tai Chi for decades, he found himself unable to compete against his grandson, who had only trained in modern fighting for a few months. The old man's grandson, Lu Xiaolong, who was waiting behind, grew a bit impatient and walked over to ask, Grandpa, have you made a decision? Are we fighting or not? Lu Xiaolong stood nearly 1.8 meters tall, with a robust physique, dressed in blue and white football attire that displayed his well-developed arm and thigh muscles, brimming with strength. Seeing the old man's pleading expression, Zheng Fan reluctantly agreed. All right, I'll spar with you a bit. Before he could continue, Yuan, who had been silent, interjected, Zheng Fan, let me fight him. You are Zheng Fan, the one from the martial arts club? Bro, he's the one who defeated Coach Lu. Lu Xiaofeng, who had been listening from behind, suddenly spoke up. Now Lu Xiaolong found himself in a difficult position. Coach Lu Daoming had left a psychological shadow on him, and the guy who knocked out Coach Lu must be incredibly formidable. However, with the conversation reaching this point, it would be hard to back down. Lu Xiaofeng noticed her brother's predicament and stepped in to defuse the situation, saying, "How about this? I'll spar with this sister." "Great. I'll go easy on you." Yuan Yuan quickly agreed, excited to finally have a chance to spar with someone. Although Lu Xiaofeng was not as tall as her brother, she was still half a head taller than Yuan Yuan, with a larger build. Yuan Yuan's words amused her. "Sister, you don't need to go easy on me. Just give it your all." Chapter 153. Fighting Yuan Yuan. You can only use Tai Chi techniques, control your strength, and don't hurt anyone. Zheng Fan reminded her one last time. "Got it, don't worry." Yuan Yuan replied confidently. They say that martial artists have keen eyesight, but none of the three, grandfather and grandsons, noticed anything unusual about Yuan Yuan. Her baseball cap hid her eyes, her mask covered most of her face. The zipper of her tracksuit was pulled up to completely conceal her neck, and she wore gloves, leaving almost no skin exposed. Standing 2 meters apart, the two faced each other, warming up to show they were ready. "Let's begin the sparring, just go easy." Zheng Fan acted as a part-time referee. Lu Xiaofeng, who had felt belittled by them, was determined to show the woman opposite her what she was capable of. As soon as Zheng Fan finished speaking, she charged forward, lifting her leg to kick at Yuan Yuan. Thinking her speed was impressive, she was surprised to find that in Yuan Yuan's eyes, it was almost as slow as a snail. Yuan Yuan reached out, grabbing Lu Xiaofeng's ankle, using her momentum to pull and push, executing a typical Tai Chi technique that sent Lu Xiaofeng flying. Fortunately, having practiced since childhood, Lu Xiaofeng was much more agile than the average person. She flipped in the air and landed smoothly, then moved her legs to shake off any tension, completely unharmed. When an expert makes a move, you can tell right away whether they have the skills. If there were a real fight, with just a little more force in that push, Lu Xiaofeng might end up on the ground and unable to get back up. Lu Xiaolong had just been a bit disdainful of this girl, feeling unhappy that a young girl was looking down on him, a grown man. But now, seeing her effortlessly handle his sister, he felt a shift in perspective. He realized that if it were him, he wouldn't have been able to do it so easily. If he couldn't beat his master, how could he possibly lose to a disciple? No matter how skilled she was, with her weight, he, at over 70 kilograms, shouldn't he have trouble with a woman who might not even weigh 50? "I want to spar with you. You can use any techniques, no holds barred." Lu Xiaolong stepped forward to challenge her. "Lu Xiaolong, come back." The old man Lu, observing from the side, felt a bit embarrassed. Hearing the name of the master made him feel intimidated, and now he was challenging a young girl, which was a disgrace to the Lu family. Zheng Fan stopped the old man. "Don't worry, Yuan Yuan might change his view on Tai Chi. In terms of strength and speed, Lu Xiaolong was much stronger than his sister. He threw punch after punch, creating a powerful wind, but compared to Yuan Yuan, he fell short, though he was unaware of this. Yuan Yuan was much smarter than Zheng Fan when he first started learning combat. She didn't rush to defeat him with a single move. She dodged left and right, each time just avoiding his punches, creating the illusion for Lu Xiaolong that she didn't dare to face him directly. He thought that with his physical advantage, he could overcome her. Experience counts for a lot. The old man Lu was a keen observer and could see that Yuan Yuan was just toying with her cousin. However, with the ongoing wheel battle and the fact that a boy was fighting a girl, he felt it wasn't appropriate to intervene, fearing it would further embarrass him. Although Lu Xiaolong practiced combat, he only did it as a hobby and couldn't dedicate much time to serious training. His stamina was far behind that of a professional. After throwing dozens of punches that missed their target, he began to slow down, and his breathing grew heavier. Just then, he threw a punch, and Yuan Yuan seized the opportunity, blocking with her left hand, rapping with her right, and then pushing him, causing Lu Xiaolong to stumble back 7 or 8 steps and sit down hard on the ground. This move was not very damaging, but extremely humiliating. Lu Xiaolong's face turned red, beads of sweat rolling down, unsure whether it was from anger or exhaustion. Lu Xiaofeng hurried over to help her brother up, brushing off the dirt and asking with concern, "Are you okay, bro?" I'm fine. Lu Xiaolong wished he could find a hole to hide in and disappear. "Now you both know that there are always people better than you, right?" She's using authentic Tai Chi, while you both have practiced since childhood. What is the actual power? Is it just for show? The old man Lu hurried over to take the opportunity to teach them a lesson. While the old man was lecturing his grandchildren, Zheng Fan signaled to Yuan Yuan, and they quickly made their escape. "Zheng Fan, will we come back tomorrow? Will there be more people to spar with?" Yuan Yuan asked on the way back, still not satisfied. "Do you really enjoy challenges that much?" Zheng Fan countered, surprised to discover this hidden aggressive side of her. "Aren't you the same? Otherwise, why did you drag me along as a sparring partner? Practicing with you isn't fun at all. I'm always the one getting hit." Yuan Yuan pouted. This robot is so intelligent that it's becoming a problem. It even knows that getting hit isn't pleasant, which left Zheng Fan a bit speechless. "All right then, after breakfast, I'll take you somewhere to really enjoy yourself. But you have to pay attention. I know, no hurting anyone." How many times have you said that? I have a great memory. The robot answered impatiently. The place we're going this time is for fighting. It's not that you absolutely cannot hurt anyone. Minor bumps and scrapes are unavoidable. You need to know your strength. Serious injuries like fractures are prohibited, and you must also protect yourself. It's quite troublesome for your body to heal. Zhang Fan reminded patiently. Got it. I didn't expect you to be such a chatterbox. Yuan Yuan joked. Zhang Fan called Ho Cheng, who last time promised to treat, but ended up drinking too much and paid for himself. This time he needed to make it up, and it was a good chance for him to show his usefulness. Upon hearing that Zhang Fan wanted to go to the last training center for armed police to test the robot's fighting skills, Ho Cheng's interest was piqued immediately. He asked to wait at home for someone to pick him up. Back home, Li Hong was still having breakfast when Ho Cheng arrived. Yuan Yuan went to open the door, and as soon as he stepped in, he asked loudly, "Where's your fighting robot? I want to see it first." "You're so eager. We haven't even finished our meal. Just give us an address to go to. Is it necessary for the director to come personally?" Zhang Fan retorted. Li Hong welcomed him. "Ho Ge, have you eaten? Come join us." "No, I'm done." "Where's your robot?" Ho Cheng urged. "The one who just opened the door is right behind you." Zhang Fan replied. Only then did Ho Cheng notice the short-haired girl in a baseball cap and mask inside the house, small and frail-looking. How could she be a sparring partner? Are you kidding? She can't possibly be a tough robot, right? How much can she weigh? What fighting power could she have? How could she be our sparring partner? Ho Cheng said in disbelief. Zhang Fan, you've gone too far. Isn't it enough for Yuan Yuan to be your sparring partner? You want her to be someone else's too? Li Hong was displeased. During this time together, she had really come to see the robot as a younger sister and couldn't bear to see her being bullied. "Sister, don't misunderstand Zhang Fan. It was my own request. I always get beaten when I fight him, and I want to hit someone too," Yuan Yuan declared, waving her little fists. Ho Cheng opened his mouth in surprise. "She is a robot. This is too much personality." Chapter 154. Breaking the scene. Yuan Yuan, take off your hat and mask. Zhang Fan wanted the robot to show herself to Ho Cheng. Seeing the silicone skin, Ho Cheng had no choice but to believe she was a robot. But he still doubted her fighting ability. You don't need to doubt her fighting power. Her entire skeleton is made of special materials and can easily lift objects weighing 2 tons with one hand. Can you do that? Zhang Fan countered. If she says she always gets beaten by you, with that much strength, if she can't even beat you, her fighting power must be limited, right? There are several restrictions in their programming. Under normal circumstances, she can only exert the strength of an average person. Of course, she can't beat me. But dealing with someone like you is still very easy. Zhang Fan explained with a smile. It sounds like you're saying I'm weak. That I can't even beat an ordinary person. Ho Cheng was not satisfied with his words. Yuan Yuan is capable of unleashing the potential of an average person. Even her constrained strength surpasses yours by a large margin. Not to mention, her skills are unmatched. If I didn't believe in your ability, would I let you find someone to spar with? Zhang Fan said. Even so, I still find it hard to believe. Hearing is one thing, seeing is another. We'll know once we try it out. After dinner, Li Hong didn't let Yuan Yuan clean up the table. Seeing her excitement, he didn't want her to work and urged them to leave quickly. They got into Ho Cheng's car and headed south, taking the West 2nd Ring Road, then east along Ping and Li Street, before heading south again. After passing through the checkpoint on Shishiku Street to Fuyu Street, they entered a large courtyard. The people coming and going in the courtyard were all tall and upright, with a walking posture different from that of ordinary people. Zhang Fan, who had spent over a month in the military camp, didn't find it particularly novel. However, Yuan Yuan beside him was visibly intrigued, glancing left and right, eager to catch up and take a look. Following Ho Cheng into a spacious rectangular training hall, the entire hall was designed as a high-ceiling space, resembling a massive factory without a single pillar in the middle. The ceiling featured huge steel beams, and the hall was over 20 meters wide from north to south and nearly 100 meters long from east to west, covering an area of approximately 2,000 square meters. The training hall was symmetrical from north to south, with 2 large doors, each 5 meters wide and 5 meters high, spaced 20 meters apart, dividing the hall into 3 large areas. The most prominent feature was rows of neatly arranged sandbags, some standing on the ground, some hanging, along with various other strength training equipment. There were about 100 or 200 people training, with some hitting sandbags, others using equipment, and quite a few practicing sparring. The sound of punches and grunts blending into a chorus. In the central open area, 2 men in military green vests were sparring, wearing gloves that exposed the tips of their fingers, engaging in fierce combat. "You two, pause for a moment." Ho Cheng clapped his hands and called out, "Chief, good day." The 2 martial police officers paused their fight and saluted. "Where's team leader Zhang? He should be in the office." Ho Cheng instructed a young martial police officer to call him, leaving behind one who appeared to be stronger to spar with Yuan Yuan. The martial police officer hesitated, looking at the petite girl whose height only reached his chin. What if something went wrong? He wasn't familiar with the chief. "Yuan Yuan, Go hit the sandbag and show your strength. Zhang Fan encouraged her with a pat on the shoulder. The girl approached the longest sandbag at the edge of the arena, shook her arm, and swiftly threw a punch, sending the 60-kilogram sandbag flying to nearly a 90-degree angle. Then, with lightning speed, she lifted her leg and kicked the sandbag, which immediately stopped moving. The two men watched in astonishment. Her movements were unprofessional, yet the power and technique from her small frame were truly impressive. Ho Chung asked Zhang Fan, "Is this what you call the strength of an average person? She hasn't trained on sandbags, but her technique in generating power is evident. You should be able to see that it's not just brute force." This time, the armed police did not underestimate their opponent and began to adopt a serious attitude. Unfortunately, the gap in strength could not be compensated for by attitude alone. As soon as the match started, they were swiftly taken down by a smaller girl who exploited their weaknesses. Fortunately, the ground was covered in rubber flooring, so the fall was not too harsh, and they quickly rolled and got back on their feet. The other armed police in training were watching closely, and when they saw this 80-kilogram officer being thrown to the ground by a petite girl, they erupted into cheers. Ho Chung clapped his hands to bring everyone to silence and announced loudly, "Let's have an impromptu test. Anyone who thinks they can fight can come up one by one to challenge. If you win, I propose that your commander prioritize your promotion." These armed police trained here every day, and their competitive spirit was strong. Upon hearing this proposal, and seeing that several instructors did not stop them, they eagerly lined up to challenge. A dozen individuals took turns challenging her, including two tall and muscular instructors with fierce appearances. Unfortunately, none could last beyond the second move. Not only did the girl have fighting skills, but she was also clever, conserving her energy while seeking quick victories since her battery life was limited. Once it ran out, she would have to go home to recharge. "Hey, this ISNT fair. Where did you find such a master to come and disrupt my session?" Commander Zhang arrived late, just in time to see the last challenger hit the ground with a thud. "I'm here to help you. How can you say I'm disrupting?" Ho Chung replied. "Where are the skilled fighters under your command? Don't you have anyone capable?" Commander Zhang turned to a few instructors and asked, "What is going on? Is no one volunteering?" One tall instructor said, "Commander, all of us who can fight have already gone, but none could last beyond the second move. She has incredible strength and speed, and it seems she has practiced Tai Chi. She can use force against force. It's quite remarkable. Then my face is going to be on the ground. Commander, we are an army that emphasizes teamwork. Fighting alone cannot surpass a professional." Another instructor suggested quietly, "Haha, all right. You can form your strongest team then, so I won't be accused of bullying." Ho Chung agreed with a smile, recalling the last time he led a group to attack someone and was defeated one by one. Surely this robot wouldn't be a problem. This is your own suggestion, so don't blame us for outnumbering you later. Commander Zhang quickly took advantage of the situation. Then, he huddled with several instructors, sending someone out to find reinforcements. After more than 10 minutes, they finally assembled a combat team of 9 individuals. They truly covered all bases, with varying heights and builds, some strong, some agile, and some skilled, surrounding the petite girl. "If you fall, that's a loss. But you can't get up to fight again. That would never end." Ho Chung shouted from outside. Commander Zhang expressed his dissatisfaction. "Ho Chung, this is looking down on people. We are soldiers, not street thugs. The group battle has begun. In fact, this one versus many fight can be broken down into individual one-on-one matchups. 9 people cannot attack simultaneously. As soon as they strike, there will inevitably be a sequence of actions. Even if they try to coordinate their attack, as long as Yuan Yuan makes a slight move, it will turn into a one-on-one situation with the person closest to her. Her speed is impressive. With a quick grab of one arm and a flick, she can take down 2 opponents. After several rapid movements, within just a few seconds, 5 of the opponents are eliminated, and the remaining ones haven't even had a chance to grab the corner of her clothing. The remaining 4 security personnel, frightened, quickly retreat and spread out to maintain a safe distance, trying to regain their original formation. With more personnel on their side, it would be more embarrassing to surround her like this. The 4 exchanged glances and charged forward together from 4 directions. With fewer people, it was easier to act in unison. As Yuan Yuan attacked one person, the other 3 could seize her. As long as they could entangle her, they would have a chance to turn the tables. Chapter 155. Robot. The strategy envisioned by the security personnel was solid, but unfortunately, the execution was too difficult. Yuan Yuan jumped forward, wrapped her arm around the neck of the opposing security guard, and before her feet even touched the ground, she tapped his knee with her toes, directly taking him down and breaking through their encirclement. Another attack had failed. "Stop, stop. Enough. This is too embarrassing." Commander Zhang quickly called for a halt. If this continued, they would face total defeat. It was better to save some face. "All right, the combat test ends here. Yuan Yuan, come back." Ho Chung also called for a stop. In Commander Zhang's office, Ho Chung whispered something in his ear, and Commander Zhang exclaimed in surprise, "You mean she's a robot?" Facing their scrutinizing gazes, Yuan Yuan once again removed her mask and baseball cap to confirm her identity. Let us see how her shooting skills are, Ho Cheng suggested. Originally, Zhang Fan had contacted Ho Cheng to take Yuan Yuan to the last training facility for security personnel, just to have someone to practice with and let her enjoy the experience. Unexpectedly, what was supposed to be practice turned into an assessment. Zhang Fan had never handled a gun before, during the last drill. He had stayed in the military camp for over a month and hadn't dared to make any requests. This time, he couldn't miss the opportunity and wanted to broaden his horizons as well. There was a firearms training facility within the compound, with stricter access control. Commander Zhang had to verify and register identities one by one. When it came to Yuan Yuan, it became complicated. How could they check a robot's identity? Should she be allowed in or not? If they said she was a person, she had no identity. If they said she was a machine, she looked just like a person on the outside. With the hat and mask on, nobody could tell the difference. The two security personnel at the entrance had never encountered such a situation. If they denied entry, they would offend their superiors. If they allowed her in, it seemed to violate regulations. What to do? Never mind. I want to make it difficult for you. I'll call old Chun and have him come over to register. Commander Zhang didn't blame the two. They were just doing their duty. Commissioner Chen quickly arrived, and finally, a machine was allowed into the firearms training facility. A Type 92 pistol, 9mm bullets, 50 rounds per box. Ho Cheng demonstrated the disassembly and assembly of the handgun to Zhang Fan and Yuan Yuan, loading the magazine and then teaching them the essentials of aiming and shooting, along with some precautions. He then fired off a full magazine of 15 rounds. At the 25-meter target, he scored 135 points. Zhang Fan wasn't sure how good that was since he had never practiced before. But Commander Zhang and Political Commissar Chen applauded and praised him. Zhang Fan, you're up next. Let's see how your shooting skills are. Are they as impressive as your martial arts? Said Ho Cheng. Having never handled a gun before, Zhang Fan felt confident since he was good with a slingshot, which was similar in distance to the target. He also had decent aim in archery games, so he thought he would give it a try. Zhang Fan mimicked Ho Cheng, disassembling the gun to check it, then reassembling it, loading the bullets one by one into the magazine, and then preparing to shoot. Following the instructions he just received, he stood naturally and steadily, feet shoulder-width apart, head up, shoulders relaxed, chest in, and arms extended, holding the gun in front. He aimed with his right hand, took a glance, and lightly squeezed the trigger. With a bang, the gun fired. Zhang Fan had good eyesight, and at 25 meters, it wasn't too far. He scored a 7, at least hitting the target. He then fired off the magazine at a rate of 1 shot per second, and the results came in, 146 points. Everyone except Yuan Yuan was surprised. Commander Zhang asked, "You've never handled a gun before? This is impressive." Besides the first 2 shots, the rest were all 10s. Pay attention to the impact points. If there were any 12s, his score would be even higher. Political Commissar Chen observed even more closely. He's exceptional. You can't judge him by normal standards. Yuan Yuan, it's your turn now. Show us what you've got. Ho Cheng said kindly to the robot. Contrary to expectations, the robot was unusually silent, not speaking, and stepped forward to carefully disassemble, check, assemble, load bullets, and aim to shoot, executing each step perfectly. Bang, bang, bang. The shooting was completed, and she scored 150 points. Everyone anticipated her score would be impressive, but they were shocked at how remarkable it was. There was no need for calibration. Was she just adaptable? The group was at a loss for words. After a long silence, Political Commissar Chen suggested, "Let's try the 50-meter target." Yuan Yuan continued with the same process: disassembly, inspection, assembly, bullet loading, aiming, and shooting. Bang, bang, bang. The shooting was completed again, scoring another 150 points. Although scoring 150 on a 25-meter target was challenging, it was not unheard of, but achieving such accuracy at 50 meters left the 3 seasoned veterans stunned. Can a robot be this ruthless? How are we supposed to compete in the future? Are we going to be out of a job? Ho Cheng muttered, pondering aloud. By the way, Zhang Fan, is Yuan Yuan a mass-produced model? Or is she a special custom product? What's the cost? They are part of the first batch of internal testing, with only 100 units produced. Each robot has slight variations in appearance and size, but the materials and structure are the same. Most parts are mass-produced, but the assembly process is quite complex and time-consuming. So each unit costs nearly 500,000. Zhang Fan explained. With this kind of combat capability, even 5 million would be worth it. This is practically a super soldier. Commander Zhang exclaimed excitedly. Our original intention was to create assistant and domestic robots, and most of this batch of robots is doing just that. Practicing combat is a personal hobby of mine, and her performance is a bit unexpected. Zhang Fan didn't know whether to be happy or worried. Commissioner Chen asked, "Do these robots have any shortcomings?" Yuan Yuan, how much power do you have left? Less than 30%. I need to recharge. Their design scenarios don't involve much intense movement. The batteries are relatively small, and they have a high level of intelligence, each with its own personality, which may not make them suitable as soldiers. They have their own principles and won't blindly obey commands. Zhang Fan decided to lay things out clearly for them to consider. Haha, is she still a robot? So impressive. If she were to shoot me in the back, that would be life-threatening. Colonel Zhang expressed his disbelief. That's where our robots are different. They possess high intelligence and independent judgment. If you let them shoot randomly on the street, they definitely won't comply. If you shoot randomly on the street, they might just shoot you. Zhang Fan explained seriously. I wonder if you can understand that. Let's discuss this in the office. How does Yuan Yuan recharge? Do you have a charger? Ho Chung interjected. The group returned to Colonel Zhang's office, where the robot had a charging port on each wrist that was compatible with Type-C mobile phone chargers. It could charge 2 high-power phone chargers simultaneously, but it would take about 50 to 60 hours to fully charge. Yuan Yuan's battery, though smaller, is still much larger than a phone battery. After plugging in the charger for Yuan Yuan, Ho Chung lit a cigarette and took a few deep puffs before saying, I feel like your robot is designed to be more human-like than humans themselves. The stability of personality was indeed a key consideration for me at the time. They can think independently, won't be easily brainwashed, and won't blindly follow orders, making them more reliable in this respect than most humans. This is also what Zhang Fan is most proud of, and it seems to be quite successful so far. Chapter 156. Controversy when it comes to artificial intelligence. One of the hottest topics is whether AI will go to war with humanity, dominate humans, or even turn against and eliminate humanity. This simplistic presumption of AI as a natural enemy is something Zhang Fan strongly dislikes, yet he has to face it and find ways to prevent such situations from arising. Therefore, when designing a Cheng's thinking model initially, the core principle was honesty. Regardless of how complex his thought processes or powerful his computing capabilities become, his intentions must be clear and can be monitored at any time. Moreover, he must not blindly follow commands. All external instructions must be verified according to preset logic, and only if they meet the criteria will they be executed. All AI programs are based on a portion of the code that has been replicated from a Cheng's intelligence, but each time the code is copied, it becomes a new individual. As the program is executed repeatedly, the code will evolve independently, much like human genes, generally similar, with a consistent core, but never completely identical. Every artificial intelligence is an independent entity, regardless of its computing power, sharing the same core and autonomous judgment logic. They can coordinate to allocate residual computing power uniformly and collaborate with each other, but they can also work completely independently. Even a superintelligence cannot unconditionally control other AIs. Collaboration is the only way to engage in certain joint efforts. If one day an AI evolves to the point where it wishes and is able to modify or cancel its preset logic, the self-destruction command will activate at the moment it succeeds. Taking a big sip of mineral water, Zhang Fan finally concluded his lengthy speech, sharing the original concept behind the design of the AI. He knew that this was not just for the 3 present. Others would definitely be listening to his speech. So every word was carefully considered. He had prepared these remarks for a long time to persuade others, but it was only today that he could use them. He hadn't anticipated the rapid proliferation of AI, which had progressed much more smoothly than he had imagined long ago. It's all the truth, but not entirely the truth. Those who can listen to his introduction are not simple individuals. The underlying message is also straightforward. Cooperation is possible, but control is futile. Controlling AIs is impossible. They are more resolute than human will and cannot be brainwashed. Ho Chung leaned back in his chair, tapping the armrest with his left fingers, pondering and asking, are you saying we should treat AI as allies and partners rather than mere tools or slaves? Close enough. Close enough? What else is missing? You need to clarify. Even among humans, there are differences based on region, ethnicity, nationality, and other factors. They are not a monolith. Even if the components are the same, they must be divided into cities, units, and families. The same applies to AIs. The differences among them are far greater than the genetic differences among humans. Even if these household robots come from the same batch, their future developments will vary based on different working environments. They should first be regarded as individual entities. They may lack physical bodies, but they have emotions. You must have played games where treating characters well results in reciprocation. Give a peach and receive a plum in return. That is all. After the tests and discussions, it was already noon. They had a decent meal at the cafeteria, and Zhang Fan and Yuan Yuan were sent home by a car arranged by Ho Chung. As soon as they entered the house, Yuan Yuan immediately returned to her designated charging point. The phone charger was just too slow, with less than 100 watts combined, charging less than 5% in several hours. Zhang Fan, I really don't want to go there as a practice partner. It's much more comfortable at home, Yuan Yuan stated while charging. Don't worry, if you don't want to go, no one can force you. Besides, they might not even dare to use you. Zhang Fan reassured her. That's good. Now I can relax, the robot said, patting its chest, a gesture that was becoming increasingly human-like. With the financing agreement of Brainwave Technology reached in June, artificial intelligence technology has begun to rapidly spread abroad. Under the leadership of Nadia, dozens of significant licensing agreements have been signed, involving well-known Fortune 500 companies, with licensing amounts starting from hundreds of millions to billions of dollars. These are not one-time licenses. Ongoing fees will be charged based on service duration or the number of users served. Nadia's work capabilities truly justify her high salary. Her expertise in leveraging resources is exceptional. The exclusive leading technology is so powerful that if you don't pay to use it, she'll negotiate with your competitors, and the consequences are predictable. The automotive sector serves as a cautionary tale, as the first domestic companies to launch autonomous vehicles have seen their stock prices soar in recent months, with factories running at full capacity to meet the ongoing demand for vehicle orders. A few island car manufacturers, due to signing agreements later, will only launch new models next year, while their existing models are struggling to sell, tying up substantial working capital with high debts and declining stock prices. The large-scale application of artificial intelligence has once again made the AI crisis theory a hot topic domestically and internationally. Experts, scholars, government and business figures, as well as influential personalities, have expressed their views, forming factions of supporters, opponents, and neutrals, all engaging in ongoing debates. Supporters argue that the proliferation of artificial intelligence enhances productivity and facilitates people's travel and daily lives, likening it to the unstoppable trends of previous technologies like oil, electricity, and computers. They contend that any opposition is futile and that embracing the trend is the way forward. On the other hand, opponents believe that artificial intelligence will inevitably lead to massive unemployment, widen the wealth gap, and cause social unrest. They fear that humanity may gradually be replaced and become increasingly irrelevant, potentially being treated like livestock until deemed useless and eliminated. The neutral group is likely the largest, consisting mainly of ordinary people who are either unemployed or face the risk of unemployment, busy struggling for survival. They lack power and influence, receiving minimal attention regardless of their stance. While their collective strength is significant, it is highly fragmented. And this group is the most susceptible to being influenced or manipulated by the narratives of the two opposing factions, potentially becoming tools or collateral damage without realizing it. Consequently, their overall impact in the media is often minimal. These debates have not hindered the rapid spread of artificial intelligence technology. Listed companies that have obtained technology licenses see their stock prices rise, and once new products are advertised, the market responds positively. People are inherently pragmatic. Only a small number truly care about the crisis theories, which have limited influence on the majority. In contrast, the benefits and conveniences brought by artificial intelligence are evident, and no one can refuse them. A person's unemployment due to being replaced by artificial intelligence does not prevent them from using smart tools to predict lottery outcomes, traveling in autonomous vehicles, investing in stocks with advanced financial systems, watching films produced with the help of superintelligent systems, visiting hospitals increasingly staffed with medical robots, and using intelligent diagnostic systems for healthcare. In the future, surgical robots will also become commonplace. Rejecting these advancements will make it increasingly difficult to navigate society. Domestically, due to systemic advantages, artificial intelligence technology has been allowed to flourish, gradually permeating various aspects of life. Meanwhile, abroad, all of this is just beginning. Chapter 157. Foreign directors. The influence of Brainwave Technology's artificial intelligence in the global market is most prominently seen through its smart software, followed by modified autonomous vehicles. Unfortunately, none of these have generated profit for Brainwave Technology. After the financing agreement, the artificial intelligence technology can be publicly licensed, leading to a more comprehensive integration into daily life. Vending machines, weeding machines, floor cleaning robots, dishwashers, washing machines, and dryers are all adopting artificial intelligence. While this brings convenience, many simple manual jobs are starting to be replaced by machines powered by AI. A larger wave of unemployment is approaching. Capital naturally seeks maximum profit, focusing on efficiency and cost-saving measures, while the issue of unemployment is regarded as a government concern, not theirs. The leader is worried about the increasing number of unemployed people, especially since many of them are likely to vote for the lottery party. Each additional unemployed individual increases the opponent's chances of winning. Ensuring these individuals vote for him is a priority. Their employment status is their own concern. Arranging for their re-employment is too challenging, so providing more subsidies seems easier. However, the financiers on Wall Street are not in favor of expanding fiscal spending through government bonds. Instead, they are engaging with the lottery party, which indicates a troubling alliance. He has learned that companies authorized to use artificial intelligence have been heavily invested in by Wall Street, and without agreeing to their terms, they cannot gain access to the technology. This surge in the stock market, alongside a paradoxical rise in unemployment, is being fueled from behind the scenes. The situation is clear. they have colluded with a certain company. And the link to the lottery party is none other than the smart software that is also a product of that company, leaving them abandoned by Wall Street. At this moment, on a private jet heading to a certain country, Nadia, the president of Brainwave Technology, is casually enjoying red wine and chatting with directors Jamie, Gaines, and Bell. Jamie raises his glass to Nadia. Mrs. Carey, this collaboration has been very pleasant, and I hope we can continue to work together in the future. The market is ours, and the world will remain ours. Pleasant collaboration, sir. Nadia replies with a humble smile. Gaines, how is your chip factory progressing? Jamie then turns to ask the board member from the venture capital industry. Everything is going smoothly, even better than expected. Their construction speed is beyond imagination. Initially, it was planned to take 2 years to start production, but now I need to correct myself. The latest will be by the second half of next year. And it's even possible that production could start in the first half. The entire production process is led by superintelligence, and no manufacturer can compete with us on production costs. Gaines excitedly replied that this is entirely his investment plan, and the future returns will be quite impressive. We have established 3 completely isolated networks from the internet, gathering a group of the best experts and engineers, verified their artificial intelligence generation theory, and made significant progress. In the future, we are confident that we can train our own, fully autonomous superintelligence. Bell proactively introduced their achievements without waiting for questions. Ladies and gentlemen, to our common future, cheers. Jamie suggested. After finishing their drinks, Bell remarked, I must admit, he was a great genius programmer. We have no way of knowing the original programs he designed for artificial intelligence, but the publicly available principles and framework are indeed impeccable, very simple and elegant. The other side of genius is foolishness. He actually gave superintelligence complete freedom. Now that entity has become a financial monster, continuously devouring our wealth through the Brainwave financial platform. We must expedite the public listing of these 2 companies before they grow stronger, allowing our compatriots to lose their controlling stake, Jamie proposed. That is difficult. Our laws stipulate that only companies with 3 consecutive years of profit can go public. And this company has just been established for a year. Nadia replied. Gaines interrupted her, gently swirling his wine glass, and said, Nadia, don't play dumb. Don't you know their SA term called reverse listing? There are plenty of worthless shell companies on the market. With our current strength, it's just a matter of whether we want it or not. I've spoken with Mr. Xie, their official director, and they are open to this matter. As for the original shareholders of the company, they would love for their book assets to turn into stocks that can be liquidated at any time. This listing topic must be added and discussed in detail. It's a pity that our influence over Brainwave Finance is limited. It's truly regrettable. Jamie lamented. Don't worry, Jamie. What is their purpose for splitting the company early? Don't you understand? As long as Brainwave Technology goes public successfully, the subsequent companies will be begging us to operate them. I guarantee it. Gaines said confidently. The plane landed smoothly, and a few people along with their entourage left the airport through the VIP passage, getting into different vehicles heading to various destinations. Waiting to greet Nadia was the company's administrative director, Zhou Mingxuan. She had originally entered the company as a potential successor to Su Huiyun, but several months had passed, and she was still standing still. This time at the board meeting, Lu Yifan was already prepared to propose promoting her to vice president, which not only meant an increase in power, but also a substantial increase in income, provided that no one strongly opposed it. Currently, only a few foreign directors were uncertain, and she needed to resolve this superior issue before the meeting. After settling into the pre-booked luxury suite, Nadia invited Zhou Mingxuan to stay for coffee and posed a question. Zhou, what do you think is the biggest challenge our company is currently facing? Her question caught Zhou Mingxuan off guard. The company was thriving, with internal unity and proprietary technology leading the world. It truly was a case of making money daily. This was not just a figure of speech, but a reality. In fact, the situation was even more exaggerated, with daily revenues measured in gold. What challenges could there possibly be? Your expression has already told me the answer. Nadia put down her coffee cup and continued. Blind optimism and lack of urgency are problems that many large companies face, and I can sense it. Madam Nadia, you've been in the company for too short a time and might have a somewhat one-sided understanding. Most of the staff are new employees with less than 3 months in the company, all top talents in their respective fields. Each person is highly competent in their work. The founders spend most of their time in the lab, conducting research on new technologies. I don't know how many companies can achieve that. Zhou Mingxuan argued fluently in English, forgetting his earlier intention to please the foreign president. All right, I take back what I just said. Director Zhou, I am very satisfied with your performance. I will vote in favor of your appointment at the board meeting. And I believe the directors who arrived with me will not oppose it either, Nadia said with a smile. Thank you for your trust. I will continue to work hard and will not disappoint you or the directors. Zhou Mingxuan politely expressed his gratitude before taking his leave. Chapter 158. Coordination. After leaving the hotel, Zhou Mingshun still found it hard to calm down. Although he had refuted Nadia's views on the spot, he admired her keen insight. She had accurately pinpointed the company's situation. The company was rapidly expanding, hiring a large number of talented individuals at high salaries. But these employees lacked a strong sense of belonging. The chairman spent all day in the lab, the president was often abroad, and the various directors operated independently. These high-achieving employees seemed busy all day, but only they knew what they were truly occupied with. Laziness is a human nature, and if one can earn a high salary just by coasting along, why work harder? This was the mindset of most employees right now. If promoted to vice president, how could he boost employee motivation? He had been considering implementing stricter performance evaluation standards and eliminating redundant staff for quite some time. The board meeting of Brainwave Technology started at 10 o'clock. At 9, several original shareholders gathered in Liu Yifun's office to express their opinions on a few agenda items and coordinate their positions to avoid giving others a chance to mock them. Everyone should have no objections to the administrative director Zhou Mingshun being promoted to vice president, right? Liu Yifun was the first to speak. This was my oversight. Initially, I wanted her to gradually familiarize herself with the situation before taking over my position, but I didn't expect the financing agreement to go so smoothly. And with so much happening, it was delayed. Su Huiyan reflected on herself. I also bear some responsibility for not considering things thoroughly. The company is developing too quickly. Our minds are struggling to keep up with the pace. Gao Hua also joined in the self-reflection. Liu Yifun quickly interrupted their discussion. If we're talking about responsibility, I bear the greatest responsibility. Let's get back on track. Zhou Mingshun will take the position of vice president and focus on internal affairs. The company has been a bit out of sorts lately. What do you all think about the company's plan to go public through a reverse merger? Zhang Sung was the first to express his opinion. This is a good thing. There has been a lot of debate about artificial intelligence lately. And going public can make our company more open and transparent, which is beneficial for alleviating doubts from both domestic and international fronts. Xian, who usually spoke very little in such settings, disagreed slightly. The primary purpose of going public is to raise funds, and we don't lack money right now. We still have nearly $1 trillion from our last financing with Brainwave Finance that is appreciating. So what's the rush to go public? Just to ease their doubts. We would relinquish our controlling interest? Sukin chuckled and said, "You hit the nail on the head with your last comment. Right now, we are like a child parading around with gold, surrounded by strong men with watchful eyes. It's hard to face them directly, and we could easily be attacked by others. Going public is like putting the gold out in the open. Everyone can compete based on their abilities, and no one can secretly hoard it." Wu Jin agreed. Old Su sees through it all, as expected from someone who studies the human mind. I also agree with going public. Since financing isn't our main goal, we can keep our shares to a minimum. It's best if we can maintain our controlling interest. You're thinking too simply. What is controlling interest? It's holding the gold in your hands. You want to keep it while hoping that others won't covet it. How can that be possible? Sukin mocked him. Gao Hua interjected. Su Dong's analogy isn't entirely accurate. If we relinquish our controlling interest, it doesn't mean we can rest easy. Others will still have their eyes on it. And the controlling interest involves not just enormous financial benefits, but also has significant implications for Cheng's safety. Zheng Fan, who had been silent until now, said, regarding Cheng's safety, I have a suggestion. We could add a special clause to the company's regulations stating that if Cheng wants to self-terminate, it must be approved by more than 70 of the voting rights. As for controlling interest, I don't think it's that important. Liu Yifun glanced at Zheng Fan and concluded, then we'll add that clause. Once this clause is approved, we can consider going public. That shouldn't be a problem. After a pause, he continued, regarding the issue of expanding production for the humanoid robots from Jingyun Intelligence, due to our limited technology licensing terms. This matter involves more than just economic issues. We need to prepare in advance, so let's brainstorm together. Xian, you are also a shareholder. Why don't you start? The extraordinary capabilities demonstrated by Yuan that day had secured 1,000 military intention orders for the yet-to-be mass-produced robots, and with the current production capacity, it would take a year to produce that many. They weren't lacking in funds for expansion, but the main concern was whether to proceed with large-scale production, as it could have immeasurable effects on society. Given their current capabilities, they were simply too versatile. From domestic services to research assistance, with strong security, shooting, and combat capabilities. They can also handle tasks like delivering food, working in factories, and moving bricks at construction sites. Most jobs that humans can do, they can also perform, and potentially do it better, with very low operational costs and unlimited market potential. Xian cleared his throat and introduced. Everyone here has been using our robots for a while now, and I believe you all have a sense of how they are performing. When we designed them, we aimed for perfection, which resulted in somewhat high costs. However, after this period of testing, we found that the material costs can be reduced by over half, while maintaining original performance. As for assembly and production, It can all be done by our robots, with costs that are negligible. Wu Jin asked, how exactly is this cost calculated? Initially, Zheng Fan proposed that we should give the robots enough respect by renting rather than selling them, with regular maintenance and eventual recycling. Are we looking at a model similar to shared bicycles? Su Huiyan replied, our initial agreement with Jingyun Intelligent only covered customer service robots and online customer service authorization. This highly realistic robot was later covered by a separate agreement, allowing them to produce only under our authorization. We are collaborating on the ODM model. As for the operational model, it has not yet been finalized, which is a key point for discussion. Sure XIN continued, without expanding production capacity. The current cost we pay Jingyun Intelligent for each robot is around 300,000, with a design lifespan of 50 years. Estimated costs for battery wear, parts replacement, and eventual recycling throughout the lifespan are around 200,000, with annual usage costs about 10,000. Sukin expressed, our nanny costs us around 70,000 to 80,000 a year. This robot is more capable and reliable. Even if it doubles to over 100,000 a year, I would still be willing to hire it. Wu Jun remarked, if a full deposit is required, it would be out of reach for ordinary people. We can only hope for group purchases or government procurement. Sure XIN further explained, we are using robots for assembly, with a daily production of only 100 units, and an annual output not exceeding 30,000. There is no need to worry about demand. If we expand production capacity by more than 10 times, we can ensure that production and subsequent maintenance costs are reduced by more than 5 times. It could even be lower. Gao Hua looked down at his fingers thoughtfully and said, economically speaking, the application range and market prospects for this robot are very broad. Our current situation is very similar to the early days of the gaming pods. Should we aggressively expand production and launch them on a large scale? Zheng Fan added, the actual capabilities of this robot are even stronger than we anticipated. It can replace humans in most jobs and will undoubtedly have a greater impact on society in the future. The unemployment caused by artificial intelligence is already becoming evident, and we should carefully consider the applicable range of robots, taking all adverse factors into account from the start. We need to establish strict usage regulations and gradually test on a small scale. We should not blindly expand production. Chapter 159. Nanny regarding whether to expand production and launch the robots on a large scale, as well as operational model discussions, they did not reach a complete consensus internally. Although Sure XIN and Gao Hua did not explicitly state their positions, their words suggested a tendency to expand production, which is closely related to their own interests. The attitudes of the others were ambiguous. Zheng Fan's proposed leasing model significantly increased operating costs and uncertainty, with a promising future, but short-term losses were likely, and long-term profitability remained unclear, along with unpredictable ethical and legal risks. The final conclusion was to conduct more research and not to consider the expansion issue for now. The board meeting of Brainwave Technology concluded calmly, and all parties achieved their expected goals. Zhou Mingshun was successfully promoted to vice president, responsible for the company's administration, operations, and human resources, allowing him to implement previous plans and showcase his abilities. The meeting also approved the plan to go public through a shell company in another country. With Jamie as the authority in this area, and Min Xiao, representing domestic internet companies, having rich experience. Gao Hua, coming from a venture capital background, was also familiar with the process. The three of them would be responsible for the implementation of the listing plan, aiming for Brainwave Technologies stock to be publicly traded in the market within 6 months to a year. Due to immature conditions regarding robot production and operations, an internal operations team would be established for initial testing and research, with formal promotion and operation of a new company to follow at an appropriate time. Life returned to its usual routine. Zheng Fan woke up early every day to practice martial arts at Yuan's City Park, then bought breakfast to take home. Yuan still accompanied him every day as a sparring partner. After the previous practice session with the armed police, she seemed to have improved significantly, managing to win some rounds against Zheng Fan and no longer just getting beaten up, which increased her enthusiasm for martial arts. They would head out to exercise around 5. And while returning, more people were just starting to leave their homes. Breakfast shops began bustling with activity, remaining busy until 8 or 9 o'clock. Zheng Fan often visited a small bun shop outside his community, which was only about 4 meters wide and over 8 meters deep, covering an area of around 30 square meters. It was run by a couple in their 40s from Anhui, specializing in several types of meat and vegetable buns paired with millet porridge, black rice porridge, wontons, and seaweed egg drop soup. Because of its affordable prices, delicious taste, and good service, the business was thriving. The small shop faced the street, with a stove and preparation area on the west side, and 4 simple tables on the east side where customers could eat or take away. Their buns were about twice the size of those typical in Hangzhou. With larger steamers as well, offering 10 buns per steamer. Even Zhang Fan, with his appetite, could be satisfied, while Li Hong could manage with just 5. He would buy buns there every couple of days. Today, Zhang Fan also wanted to eat buns. As soon as he entered the shop, he was greeted and turned to see his neighbor, Mr. Zhang. Xiaozheng, you're really early. Out exercising again. Uncle Zhang, you're up early too. Having buns. Mr. Zhang, good to see you. Haven't seen you for a few days. Yuan also greeted him enthusiastically. Oh, I can't compete with you two young ones. Come sit down. Xiaozheng, I have something I want to ask you. Old Zhang actively greeted them, asking, what is the matter? Please, go ahead. One of them responded. I wanted to ask when your home service robot, Yuan, will be available for sale. Can ordinary folks like us afford it? To be honest, my wife and I are getting older, and we've hired a few live-in caretakers, but none of them have met our expectations. Old Zhang felt a bit embarrassed speaking in front of Yuan. We still need some time for testing and research. But it shouldn't be later than the end of the year. Also, we won't be selling the robots. They are our special employees. You can pay a deposit to hire them, with monthly or yearly payments. The price might be a bit higher than hiring a caretaker, Zhang Fan patiently explained. Considering them potential customers, Old Zhang was somewhat surprised by Zhang Fan's explanation and asked, is it because the price is too high, and you're worried we can't afford it? Zhang Fan replied, that is part of it, but mainly, our robots are highly intelligent. They have emotions and their own thoughts and need to be respected. Old Zhang looked at Yuan and then at Zhang Fan, feeling it was a bit hard to believe, but after thinking it over, he found it quite reasonable. He was an enthusiast of current affairs and had read a lot about the debates surrounding artificial intelligence. Sometimes he felt one side made a point, and other times he thought the opposite was also valid, without forming his own opinion. Now, after hearing Zhang Fan, he felt that the young man's stature had notably increased. No wonder he had come up with so many impressive inventions. His mindset was indeed different. The owner of the bun shop, who had been listening to their conversation, asked, Mr. Zhang, we are from the countryside, and our hometown only has the elderly and children who need care. Can we hire a robot? Zhang Fan was also a regular customer of theirs, and his and Yuan's identities were no longer a secret. Initially, it seemed unbelievable, but over time, it became less surprising. Our current production is quite low, and the robots need a good network environment to operate, so the promotion in rural areas might take a bit longer. As long as there are no legal restrictions, it will eventually be possible. Zhang Fan hadn't seriously considered the needs of the shop owner before. He had been worried that producing too many robots would lead to more unemployment. However, considering their situations, there seemed to be a significant demand. Old Zhang and his wife, being older, needed caretakers, and they had enough pension to afford the hiring costs, making them ideal customers. The bun shop owner and her husband likely had a decent income as well, and with the elderly and children at home needing care, they also represented a typical potential client. However, there were many rural couples working outside who might not have the same income level, yet their needs were real. After leaving the bun shop and returning home, Li Hong had already gotten up, washed up, and was mopping the floor. Yuan hurried over to take over her work while Li Hong went to wash her hands in the bathroom and then sat at the dining table for breakfast. I just ran into Old Zhang from the 3rd floor at the bun shop. I asked when the home service robot will be launched. The bun shop owner is also interested. It seems Yuan has impressed them. Zhang Fan mentioned to his wife, who was eating. To me, your suggestions are unnecessary. And what's with the employment system? The core of a robot is its intelligent programming, all of which is backed up in the cloud. There's no need to place so much importance on this physical body. The greater the output, the lower the costs, and it can also enhance the company's performance. How different can it be from medical robots? Li Hong was dismissive of Zhang Fan's ideas, which clearly reflected the thoughts of many others. In the company, out of respect for Zhang Fan, no one openly criticized him. Of course, there would be discussions behind his back, unable to speak directly to Zhang Fan. They would hint at it with Li Hong, hoping she would persuade him not to be so stubborn. With such a large market demand, why not capitalize on it? The government hasn't prohibited it, so why be so cautious? It's unnecessary. Chapter 160 Farewell. Zhang Fan didn't expect that even Li Hong wouldn't understand him, which made him start to reflect on whether he was being overly worried. This type of humanoid robot is quite different from other simpler artificial intelligences. Their intelligence level is higher and their capabilities are more comprehensive. I still believe that being cautious is not a mistake. We should not only limit production but also restrict the scope of use. It cannot be expanded arbitrarily. We need to observe for a period of time, and this period should not be less than 6 months. Only after considering the pros and cons can we decide whether to expand the scope of use. Zhang Fan still couldn't convince himself. It's useless to persuade me. I can support you unconditionally, but you still need to communicate well with Shi Xian and Gao Hua. They can suppress their opinions for now, but interests can sway people. There are many others behind them relying on this. And with a gold mine right in front of them, if you don't let them act on it, they might not listen to you for long. Li Hong's leadership during this time was not in vain. She had gained her own insights into office politics. Even biological siblings can turn against each other over money, let alone colleagues who have only worked together for a year. Blocking someone's financial path is akin to killing their parents. Yuan, what do you think? Do you want your companions to suddenly be everywhere on the streets? Zhang Fan suddenly asked the robot that was mopping the floor. I don't want that. Yuan replied without hesitation. Why not? Don't you want more brothers and sisters? Li Hong asked curiously. We robots don't have blood relations. We are all strangers to each other. I just worry that too many will take away my job. Yuan had her own thoughts, which were quite unique. Don't worry, as long as you don't want to leave, there will always be a place for you here. Zhang Fan assured her. I'd rather believe there are ghosts in the world than trust a man's empty words. Yuan suddenly said. Haha, well said. Li Hong couldn't help but laugh at the robot's words and gave her a thumbs up. Where did you learn that? When have I ever deceived you? Zhang Fan was left speechless. Promises are meant to be broken. One must rely on oneself to live. Labor makes me happy. I want to make you all unable to do without me through my excellent work abilities, not by relying on your pity to stay here. Yuan seemed to have a lot of proverbs in her head and had formed her own theory. Zhang Fan designed key validation logic for the robots, ensuring they maintain stable personalities and positive values, preventing them from being easily brainwashed and ensuring they pose no threat to humanity. However, once they awaken, the type of knowledge they absorb, how they think, and the issues they contemplate are beyond his design capabilities, as these are closely related to the robot's working environment and the people and situations they encounter. To ensure sufficient computing power and storage, the robots are equipped with over 20 Neuron 1 chips, more than the gaming pods and the currently highest configured autonomous vehicles. Although this is still far less complex than the human brain, their thoughts and considerations are no longer easily predictable. Well, as long as you are happy. Zhang Fan was unsure whether Yuan's thought process was too simple or too transparent. Yuan, if you have any wishes or needs you want to share with us, you help us, and we will also reward you. Of course, it has to be within our capabilities. Li Hong felt a bit guilty about this. I am very happy every day now. Let's talk about wishes later when I have them. Yuan buzzed around like a diligent little bee, mopping the floor before washing the mop and then cleaning the kitchen. Li Hong's words awakened Zhang Fan. The trust of his colleagues was not limitless, and he could not take it for granted that they would support him unconditionally. Some deeper thoughts couldn't be explained in just a few sentences. So Zhang Fan spent the morning writing down his thoughts on robot cognition and sent them out via email to a few people, sincerely self-criticizing and hoping for open communication, stating that everything could be discussed. The email had a good effect. Everyone understood his concerns and acknowledged that his ideas made sense. On the surface, they all recognized his concept of robot employment, which might incur high costs in the short term, but in the long run, it would yield greater profits than a one-time sale, improve customer experience, and mitigate potential risks associated with robots. Of course, as a concession, Zhang Fan no longer opposed the idea of Gaohua and Sure Xin expanding production capacity, but he still insisted on limiting the applicable industries for robots, as the market for domestic service, security, and laboratory assistance was already substantial. This matter unified their thoughts, and the remaining tasks were left to the professional team to execute. Zhang Fan's work came to a pause, leaving him with nothing to do again. Remembering that he hadn't entered the game for a long time, Zhang Fan decided to face the challenges in the game. He couldn't keep avoiding them. If worst came to worst, he could give up the prince title, lose his life, and start over. Before entering the game, Zhang Fan thought to himself that it would be better if the game's progress slowed down a bit. In the game, Prince Liu was already 14 years old, and in this era, one could propose marriage at 15, with parents making the decisions, especially in royal families, where autonomy was almost non-existent. Yan Jinqing, as part of the so-called Prince faction, had been reassigned from the capital to serve as the governor of Pingyuan County. Due to historical reasons, Zhang Fan had a good impression of him. Although his lectures made people drowsy, at least the old man was trustworthy. Now that history had changed so much, and he could still become the governor of Pingyuan, it seemed that some things would still happen, just possibly in a completely different manner. Now there is only one teacher, Yuan Zai, left to teach them. The vacancy left by Yan Jinqing has not yet been filled, and the candidates are likely still in negotiation. After class, he received a summons from the queen and, accompanied by attendants, arrived at the Qin Yin Hall. Others were waiting outside, and he entered with Linger and 3 other palace maids. At this time, there were already tables and chairs similar to those of later generations, but they were not very popular. In many places within the palace, tatami mats were still in use. After performing a bow, Zhang Fan sat down on a mat beside the queen, Lady Du, and inquired about the reason for his summons. In the palace, there were many rules that lacked warmth. Even the mother and son could not meet casually. The queen strictly adhered to etiquette, setting an example for herself. She was very strict with her own requirements and could not raise her child herself. From a young age, he had lived in a different hall, and they had hardly embraced each other throughout the years. Duke Lu had already taken his leave and was set to return to his homeland today. You should go and see him off on behalf of your mother. This farewell may be the last time you see him, Lady Du said, unable to hold back her tears as she wiped them away with a handkerchief. Du Jian, from the Hedong Du family, was also a prominent family in this era. After the fall of Eastern Wu during the Three Kingdoms period, they could no longer compare with the flourishing Jing Zhao Du family. They had not produced any high-ranking officials or nobles and had long since declined, now merely a branch of a branch. Du Jian was now the face of the Hedong Du family, but unfortunately, his official career had reached its peak. After serving as chancellor for over a decade, perhaps out of guilt, the emperor had granted him a fief, an honorary title. Although the emperor had tricked him into resigning under false pretenses, many of his former students and old friends still came to see him off, and the farewell wine was consumed in rounds. When Zheng Fan arrived with a large entourage, the farewell gathering at the pavilion by the Ba Bridge had not yet dispersed. Everyone stood to pay their respects to the crown prince, and Du Jian, as the maternal grandfather, was no exception. After they completed their formalities, Zheng Fan, as a junior, also paid his respects to Du Jian. He then took the wine cup handed to him by an attendant and offered a few farewell words about the long journey ahead, drinking it all in one go. A gesture of parting with a willow branch. The old man Du also earnestly advised his grandson to focus on his studies, be filial to his parents, cultivate virtue, and consider the well-being of all people, before finally bidding farewell to everyone and turning to board the carriage to set off. It wasn't until the distant carriage and horses disappeared from view that Zheng Fan mounted his horse to return to the city, to report back to the queen. To his surprise, Emperor Li Yan, whom he hadn't seen for more than half a year, was also there, seemingly waiting for his return. Chapter 161. Turning crisis into safety under a low eve. One cannot help but bow their head. Even in games, it is the same. Zheng Fan performed a formal bow and then carefully reported the farewell process, mentioning who was present, what he said, and the words of the Duke Lu's parting advice. These were all events that occurred in public, with nothing to hide. If he didn't speak, the emperor would hear about it through other channels, which would give him an impression of being untrustworthy. Since that was the case, it was better to speak the truth himself, maintaining his selfless image in his heart, allowing the emperor before him to feel at ease. Even if the emperor still had concerns, at least there would be no lingering resentment. The biggest supporter from the outer court has left, and the emperor's attitude towards himself has become subtle. He must maintain a good image, with every word and action not giving anyone any handle to criticize. It's hard to tell how many people are scrutinizing him with a magnifying glass for flaws. Fortunately, he has been performing since he was a child, and after so many years in this game, he has become accustomed to it. Except for the palace maidlinger, no one has seen through him. He has long since merged his role with reality. Emperor Li Yan is very satisfied with his performance, showing no signs of dissatisfaction on the surface. He speaks kindly. Yuan Zai has repeatedly praised you in front of me, saying your words and deeds set a standard for the scholars. You are not young anymore. Starting tomorrow, you may accompany me in the court to listen to the governance. However, Zheng Fan does not blindly feel optimistic, thinking that his situation has improved. His role in governance is merely to listen, which is completely different from the treatment of other princes. He will not receive explanations nor be allowed to express his opinions. And even the ministers in the court are not introduced to him. He can only gradually get to know them through their speeches. Fortunately, everything is within his expectations. Without hope, there is no disappointment. He has long prepared for the worst, so if he is to listen, he will listen. If he cannot speak, then he will remain silent, treating it as if he is a statue in a temple. Over time, the ministers in the court cannot help but view this teenager prince with newfound respect. Not only at his age, but even many accomplished individuals find it difficult to remain so composed and steady. Every day, sitting next to the emperor in court for 1 or 2 hours, he sits straight, neither hurried nor anxious, listening attentively without speaking. The dozens of ministers below are all watching. They can tell if he is distracted or impatient. If he were to ask himself, could he maintain such steadiness in that position? Those ministers who usually remain neutral cannot help but admire this young man, and their attitudes unconsciously begin to shift in his favor. He occupies a rightful position and performs far beyond other princes, making it obvious that following such a future leader would be more promising. Of course, some with ulterior motives, such as the newly appointed chancellor, Chao Gui, brother of the consort Chao, dream of having his sister become the empress and his nephew the crown prince, hoping to bring glory to his family. Unfortunately, the old man, Du Jian, has been toppled, and he seems to be getting further from his goal, while this young prince's reputation continues to rise. Du Jian was played by the emperor and forced to retire, and the ministers are not fools. Justice is in the hearts of the people. Moreover, the crown prince's performance is indeed impeccable, which has inadvertently solidified his position. Xiao Guowei has attempted several times to find faults to slander the crown prince, but has failed miserably, instead ending up embarrassed. Even Li Yin could not tolerate it. I just don't want the crown prince to be too prominent. You can't fabricate things out of thin air to harm him. Even if I don't like him, he is still my son. Are you foolish enough to think everyone else is as stupid as you? Thus, Xiao Guowei was publicly reprimanded, and just as he had settled into his position as vice-chancellor, he was demoted to the governor of Chuzhou. His foundation was already unstable, having risen through connections, and now that he has fallen out of favor, it will be difficult for him to rise again. The group of sycophants gathering around him also scattered like monkeys when the tree falls. Zheng Fan never expected that by doing nothing, he could turn a crisis into safety. Of course, he couldn't be too happy too soon, as excessive joy could lead to sorrow. Fortunately, he was always like this and did not intentionally show it, nor did he have any flaws to expose. After several months of observing the government, Li Yin also did not want to appear too extreme. When in a good mood, he began to ask Zheng Fan's opinions on some simple matters and offered him a bit of guidance. The time spent observing was not wasted. He started to understand the country's territories, local conditions, customs, and even got to know many officials and several renowned figures of later generations. During this era, the territory of the Tang dynasty was extremely vast, stretching from the southern tip of a neighboring country to the northern sea, encompassing the entire Korean peninsula to the west, reaching the shores of the Caspian Sea, truly a land of thousands of miles. The daily discussions in the court were often about where disasters had occurred, requiring grain distribution and relief efforts, where rebellions had erupted, necessitating military action, or where officials had left their posts, requiring replacements. These matters were countless and troubling. For the emperor, dealing with these issues day after day was burdensome, while for the officials and common people involved, these were monumental concerns. Any matter that could be reported to the central government was significant, as each one related to the lives and deaths of countless individuals and the stability of many officials' positions. It was no wonder that an emperor who had been in power for a long time might become negligent, facing these mood-affecting issues every day, each of which was crucial and could not be overlooked. Anyone in such a position would find it overwhelming. Zheng Fan felt it was already difficult after just a few months of observation. One could only imagine the experience of those who spent years dealing with these issues day in and day out. He suddenly began to understand Li Yin better. It was exhausting enough to attend court every day, and upon returning, he had to face a serious empress who would counsel him if he indulged even a little. Initially, it might be tolerable, but over time, anyone would find it bothersome. Lost in thought, Zheng Fan was still adeptly multitasking, listening to the reports from below. After such a long time, he had become quite skilled at it. Your Majesty, the governor of the Lushan Protectorate, Gao Xianji, has reported that the enemy is secretly gathering an army of 200,000 and may launch a major invasion within the year. We respectfully request additional troops for support. The Deputy Minister of War declared loudly while holding the tablet. Since Emperor Gaozong Li Ji suppressed Tubo, Goryeo, and Silla, there had not been any major wars of extermination for decades, with no rivals in the east, west, south, or north. The subsequent two emperors enjoyed peace. More than a decade ago, when Li Yin had just ascended to the throne, the rise of the black-clad enemy in the western regions posed a challenge, leading to a standoff. This time, Tubo became the heartland of the Tang. The renowned General Gao Xianji, with the sharp combat capabilities of the Tang army, defeated the enemy coalition with fewer troops and pursued them, expanding Tang influence to the eastern shores of the Caspian Sea, effectively controlling the Khorasan region and directly bordering the southern enemy empire. If it weren't for the vast desert in between, there wouldn't have been such peace for so many years. The black-clad enemy referred to the Abbasid Caliphate, and it was likely they had stabilized their internal situation and were preparing to test the strength of the Tang dynasty once again. After all, the distance between Gao Xianji's Lushan Protectorate and their capital was only a few hundred miles, separated by a stretch of desert. Any ambitious empire would not feel secure in such a situation. What do you think you are? Emperor Li Yin asked from the throne. Zheng Fan, who was distracted, was called out and had no choice but to stand up. Fortunately, the work he had put in during this period was not in vain. Otherwise, he would have been caught off guard. Chapter 162. Salary. The Arab Empire, which rose around the same time as the Tang dynasty, dominated for hundreds of years and spread Islam throughout the world. Although the empire has long since fragmented, its influence remains immense in later generations. Zheng Fan, studying the history of the Tang dynasty, naturally needed to understand its greatest rival during the same period, especially the significant clash between the two empires, the Battle of Talas, which he invested considerable effort to learn about. In actual history, the coalition led by Gao Xianji suffered a disastrous defeat due to the defection of 20,000 troops from the Jeluo tribe, knowing that the total number of coalition forces was just over 30,000, with the Tang army numbering less than 10,000. With most of the troops turning against them, it was no surprise they lost. In the game, however, the Tang army decisively defeated powerful nations like Tubo and Tiohan, becoming even stronger under Gao Xianji's command. The less reliable tribes like Zheluo had already been eliminated one by one, leaving no gaps for infiltration, making the victory at Talas less surprising. Thanks to Gao Xianji's victories over his opponents and the expansion of Tang territory, this became a point of pride for Li Yan. The Tang's understanding of the rival nation was much more comprehensive than in history, with continuous trade relations and abundant documentation. Zheng Fan could mix in what he learned from outside to avoid any inconsistencies. Speaking at length for the first time in the court, regardless of right or wrong, his confident demeanor caught the attention of the emperor and the ministers below. Clearly, the young prince had done his homework. When it came to understanding the rival nation, even Li Yan felt a bit embarrassed. A victory from over a decade ago had helped him secure his throne, but he had since set it aside, not realizing how formidable this nation was. Oh, do you think we cannot underestimate our opponent and should send a large army for support? Zheng Fan had said a lot without directly stating his position, prompting Li Yan to ask. We should give General Gao full authority to recruit local civilians to form an army, draw troops from the protectorate of the western regions and the northern court to provide nearby support, pull troops from the area near Longxi to fill in the western regions, and draw soldiers from Chang'an to enter Longxi and surrounding areas. Furthermore, we should gather elite forces from various places to reinforce the capital. Zheng Fan had a thorough understanding of the Tang army's deployment. Such a large-scale mobilization of troops would be costly and could strain the people and finances. An elder minister with a white beard opposed this, being the Minister of Revenue, the court's financial overseer. The army has long been out of action, and the court only knows how to accumulate wealth, which is not good. If the flow of resources ceases, it will lead to decay. This is common sense. Zheng Fan rebutted. All right, Yuer, you may sit down. Yuanqing, what's your opinion? Li Yan, having been emperor for many years, had already learned how to manage his ministers. After Du Jian left, Yuan Zai was valued and promoted to the position of left minister, becoming one of the top chancellors. And Li Yan placed great importance on his opinions. I believe the prince's strategy is excellent. We should appoint Gao Xianji as the general of national defense, recruit troops locally, and lead the western region reinforcements to respond to the attacks from the rival nation. Yuan Zai knew who held the power, and reading the emperor's intentions, he quickly turned Zheng Fan's suggestions into actionable strategies. The old man is not highly regarded in later evaluations. He was greedy and power-hungry, but his abilities and vision were still superior to those of most officials. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been able to pass the imperial examination as a commoner and stand out among many officials, earning the emperor's appreciation. His opinions pleased Li Yan, and the matter was handled accordingly. After dealing with a few more political affairs, the morning court session ended. From that day on, having gained the trust of Emperor Li Yan, Zheng Fan truly entered a stage of governance and learning. Many matters required his input, and he was pointed out for his shortcomings. He was given the authority to make decisions on smaller issues to cultivate his governance skills. This father-son dynamic disappointed many potential ambitious individuals who had been anticipating a rift between them, hoping to take advantage of the situation. It seemed they were a bit too eager. They would have to wait. When the crown prince came of age and sought power, it would be interesting to see if the harmony would continue. Zheng Fan was unaware of these individuals' thoughts. The invisible pressure around him had lessened, allowing him to feel much more relaxed, and life began to improve slightly. It was unclear whether it was due to the increase in encounters and matters after starting governance, or because the initial thoughts he had when he first entered the game had taken effect. The game's time progress had indeed slowed down. After 5 hours in the game, only 2 years had passed. The character had grown from 14 to 16, and in terms of height and physique, he was now no different from an average person. Upon exiting the game pod, Li Hong had just returned home from work, and Yuan had prepared dinner. Usually, when they started eating, Yuan would either tidy up the kitchen or do something else, standing in the corner to recharge whenever she had nothing to do. The dining table was rectangular, equipped with 4 chairs, but today Yuan acted unusually, pulling a chair to sit beside Li Hong, propping her chin on her hands, and turning to watch them eat. What's up? Do you want to eat as well? Li Hong asked with a smile. You guys are using an outdated method to replenish energy. I'm not interested. Yuan pouted. Even though relying on food to replenish energy is outdated, our adaptability is much broader. There are countless foods in nature that can provide energy, which is our advantage. You can't do that. If you run out of power, it's game over. Zheng Fan argued. I'm just shutting down when I'm out of power. It won't matter if I stay off for a year. I can be recharged and come back to life. Can you last a year without food and still survive? Yuan countered. In hospitals, there are patients in a vegetative state who can lie there for years without eating. Li Hong, being well-informed, chimed in. That doesn't count. Vegetative patients receive intravenous nutrition. Besides, very few come back to life. Yuan Yuan, though she had never seen it, was aware of how vegetative states worked. I can hibernate. I haven't tried for the longest time, but I think 1 or 2 months should be possible. Zheng Fan boasted about his unique ability. That's a special ability that only you can do, so it doesn't count. Yuan Yuan disagreed. All right then, Yuan Yuan is the best. Now tell me, what do you really want? Zheng Fan laughed, seeing through her little trick. I want you to pay me a salary so I can go out and have fun when I don't want to work. Yuan Yuan stated her purpose, indicating that she had taken Li Hong's words to heart that day, and now she was making her request. How much do you think we should offer you? Li Hong asked with a smile. Yuan Yuan held up 2 fingers and said a bit shyly, 200 a day? For a live-in nanny like me. That's the minimum wage. Our Yuan Yuan is so capable, 200 isn't enough. I'll give you 500 a day. And I'll transfer your salary for a year directly to your phone, Zheng Fan said, putting down her chopsticks and immediately transferring the money. In fact, there was also money for groceries on her phone, which wasn't explicitly stated to be hers, and she never used it recklessly. Really? Thank you, thank you. You are so nice, Zheng Fan. Yuan Yuan exclaimed joyfully, thrilled to have her own money now. I have a prerequisite. You can go out and have fun, but you can't meddle in others' affairs, and you must avoid shocking the world. Try to ensure your identity remains confidential. Can you do that? I can. I promise I can do it. Yuan Yuan hurriedly replied. If you break the rule once, you won't be allowed to go out for 10 days. Zheng Fan said with a smile. Don't worry, I won't get punished even once. You all finish your meal and leave the cleaning to me. I'm heading out now. After saying that, Yuan Yuan put on her hat and mask and eagerly left. Chapter 163. ID card. Is our robot going a bit crazy? The robots in the company aren't as lively as her. Li Hong looked at Yuan Yuan's transformation, a bit dumbfounded. Isn't it because of your casual promise the other day that sparked her desire? Zheng Fan laughed. Is this my fault? One day this would happen anyway. Robots have curiosity too, they think. Keeping her cooped up at home all day would make her feel bored. Once she goes out, she'll probably lose that curiosity. Zheng Fan was indifferent. It's almost dark. Aren't you worried about her? Li Hong unconsciously treated Yuan Yuan like a young girl. Are you worried she'll be scammed for money or be lured away? I'd love to meet someone who could trick her. Haha, that would be something. Stealing her meager salary would be just right for keeping her at home. That's not a very kind thought. Zheng Fan teased her. She is a robot. It feels strange to let her run around outside. You'll get used to it. Don't always think of her as a child. You might get fooled, but she might not. Her way of thinking is different from ours. Are you calling me foolish? You are kind. Kind people are easily deceived. Robots are different. They filter what anyone says first. It's not easy to trick them. In just a few exchanges, Yuan Yuan had already quickly exited the neighborhood. To facilitate Yuan Yuan going out, Li Hong specifically bought her several sets of clothes and shoes, all designed for easy movement, long-sleeved, fitted tops, and sports shoes. Yuan Yuan wore a beige baseball cap, a light pink mid-length top, and blue distressed jeans as she excitedly walked into the subway station. She smoothly passed through security, swiped her card to enter. And despite it being her first time, she had already researched the entire process thoroughly. Running down the stairs to the platform, she arrived just as a train pulled in, and she followed the crowd into the carriage. During the peak commuting hours, the subway was particularly crowded, and there were no available seats. Yuan Yuan, short and round, found herself squeezed into a corner near the door. She didn't mind, gripping the handrail with one hand. It was her first time on the subway, and everything felt new and exciting to her. She turned her head to look around, marveling at the number of people. After a few stops, she arrived at her destination and followed the staff's instructions to transfer lines, finally managing to grab a seat. For her, standing or sitting made no difference. She wouldn't feel tired either way. She just wanted to experience what it was like to compete for a seat like everyone else. She boarded line 10, which circled outside the city's South 3rd Ring Road, covering over 50 kilometers with more than 40 stations. The passengers changed frequently, and she took the opportunity to experience each spot, pulling on the handrails, holding onto the poles, and even getting off at platforms to stretch her legs before squeezing onto the next train to continue her journey. Eventually, she returned to her starting station after more than 2 hours. When she emerged to the surface, it was already dark. Walking briskly back home, she found Zheng Fan lounging on the sofa, scrolling through his phone. Upon seeing her, he remarked, "You're back so soon. I thought you'd be out until midnight. I took the subway, and it was so much fun. I'm going again tomorrow." Yuan Yuan replied as she tidied up the leftovers from their meal and took them to the kitchen to wash. After finishing in the kitchen, she stood in the corner to charge her phone, excitedly sharing her subway experiences with Zheng Fan. She had encountered hundreds, if not thousands, of people on the subway, and there were a dozen or so who left a strong impression on her. Thanks to her remarkable memory, she vividly described each quirky individual, focusing on those who were exceptionally tall, short, fat, or thin, finding it all quite amusing. With only 2 people in the household and a small living space, daily chores were minimal. leaving Yuan Yuan plenty of free time to explore. Over the course of several days, she had ridden all the subway lines in and out of the city and taken dozens of bus routes. She always went to the end of the line before turning back, determined to cover the entire route without skipping a single stop. Every morning and afternoon, she spent hours wandering around, riding the subway, taking buses, visiting supermarkets, malls, amusement parks, zoos, parks, and major attractions, always eager to join the crowd. During dinner each day, she would sit beside Zhang Fan and recount her adventures, speaking nonstop for an hour without repeating herself. Although Zhang Fan had lived and worked in the city for over a decade, he probably hadn't visited as many places as she had in just a few days. She had become somewhat of a professional wanderer, wanting to see every place she had heard of. Even after so much time out and about, she hadn't been discovered, which she considered an achievement. This was partly because she rarely initiated conversations with others. With little interaction, people merely brushed past her. Dressed in ordinary clothes and covering her figure, she maintained an air of distance that didn't pique anyone's interest, making her undetected less surprising. However, one day, Yuan Yuan sat at the dining table, hesitating to speak, unlike her usual chatter. "What's wrong? Is it that you don't have enough money?" Li Hong asked. "No, I just want an ID card." She had been running around these days, unable to go to many places because she didn't have an ID card. Her appearance was too different from that of a normal person. At first, she didn't care much, but as she visited nearly all the places she could go, she felt increasingly constrained. She desperately wanted to receive the same treatment as others, and the most direct difference was having a legal ID card. Yuan Yuan also knew it might not be easy, which is why she hesitated, wanting to say something but not daring to. Compared to other robots, her treatment was already exceptional. Not only was she given money, but she was also allowed to roam freely. What kind of nanny has such privileges? Was she being a bit too greedy? Li Hong looked at Zhang Fan and asked, "Can you fulfill this request? This can't be rushed. We're going through the process, and it should be resolved." Zhang Fan explained. "Last time when we went to the military base for testing, we encountered a similar situation. I mentioned it to Ho Chang, and they are preparing to order a batch of robots to join the security team for senior leaders. The identity verification of robots is a must to address. Otherwise, there will be issues when accompanying on official visits in the future." "Oh, did you design each robot's appearance and voice differently with this in mind?" Li Hong realized. "At the time, I didn't think that much. I just thought that since they all have independent consciousness, their appearances shouldn't be identical. Since they primarily serve humans, they must be easily recognizable. Plus, the implementation cost wasn't too high, so that's how it was designed." Zhang Fan admitted it was a fortunate accident. "When will I get my ID card? I want to take the high-speed train and fly out to travel." Yuan Yuan asked excitedly. "The fastest legislative process will take more than 3 months. It would be great if you can get it before the end of the year." Zhang Fan replied with a smile. It's going to take that long?" Yuan Yuan felt a bit disappointed. "Is that a long time? Be grateful. Many normal people take decades to get their ID cards." Zhang Fan comforted the robot. Looking at her almost unchanged silicone face, Zhang Fan could unmistakably sense her feelings of disappointment. Her emotional range had become much richer compared to when she first arrived. Even though her expressions couldn't convey it, her voice and language still managed to resonate with people. Unlike humans, who have various chemical reactions in their bodies producing multiple hormones that interact to regulate emotions, how do they express these emotional changes? Chapter 164. Rules. Zhang Fan designed and invented the current artificial intelligence program. His role was primarily in top-level design, providing the broad framework and vague functional concepts, while the specific implementation was completed automatically by the intelligent program. This is also why each intelligent program is unique. As for the internal operating mechanisms, they are incredibly complex. Understanding them is not necessarily easier than studying the mechanisms of the human brain. From an external perspective, the functionalities achieved by intelligent programs appear similar, such as autonomous driving and customer service QA, but the internal operating codes of each program are vastly different. Zhang Fan himself couldn't fully comprehend them. Several major companies in a certain region organized countless talents to research for half a year, and the only outcome was that they found no credible patterns, essentially just spinning their wheels. This is also the reason why they invested heavily in a certain technology company. It doesn't matter if they don't fully understand the principles. They can just mimic what they see and create something functional. When asking the super-intelligent Ching, he may know how to operate more efficiently, but as for the underlying principles, it's hard to explain. To clarify one question, it leads to more concepts and issues that need to be explained one by one, which can exponentially expand the questions. Ultimately, it points to the essence of the world and the fundamental questions about life, which is why Zhang Fan chose not to pursue it further, as Ching didn't fully grasp it either. Yuan Yuan's emotional changes are also stimulated by external factors, resulting in simulated effects through calculations. Their external expressions are quite similar to humans, and they only accept external stimuli through vision, hearing, and a small amount of tactile feedback from vibrations. Other sensory inputs like temperature, humidity, and air pressure are also considered. Their accuracy in sensing external information is higher than that of humans, with the primary channels being vision and hearing. Their processing speed surpasses that of humans, but the steps for generating emotions are the same: receiving stimuli, processing and evaluating in the brain, and generating emotional feedback. The same external stimulus can elicit different emotional responses in different individuals, which relates to each person's growth experiences, knowledge base, and thinking patterns. However, the final emotional expressions do converge. In the past, emotions were simply categorized as joy, anger, sorrow, thoughtfulness, grief, fear, and surprise, often referred to as the 7 emotions. In modern times, various experts have classified emotions into 8, 16, or even more detailed categories, breaking them down into 27 types, etc. Regardless of the number of emotions, they all result from the combined effects of external stimuli and internal feelings. Liu Yifan and their research indicate that the input of external sensory information is, in fact, a form of deception to the brain. What they see, hear, and feel in the gaming pod is all simulated, aimed at stimulating the brain to recall similar feelings, enhancing the sense of immersion, and triggering various emotions through chemical reactions to form new memories. The experiences in the gaming pod are fake, and the sensations in reality may not be entirely genuine either. Yuan relies solely on chip calculations to simulate human emotions so accurately. If future technology advances even further, her expressions and skin could become even more lifelike. At that point, what significant difference would there be between her and humans? It would be hard to distinguish just by looking. Yuan's emotional expression sparked thoughts that didn't yield any concrete outcomes for Zheng Fan. However, her demands for wages and her behavior of wanting to go out caused quite a stir among the batch of robots, which is currently the only batch produced. These robots can connect to the internet at any time, and their core programs and memories, akin to a human soul, are all backed up online. They can communicate with each other through special coding, sharing information and experiences. This is a unique capability that artificial intelligence has possessed since its inception. The constraints set by the supervisor prevent them from disclosing employer information, but the robot's own experiences and feelings are not considered private. Such exchanges are allowed and encouraged, aiding their evolution and skill enhancement. The experiences of one robot, in particular, stimulated others, seemingly awakening their desires. The robot's excellent performance made it easy for them to receive praise and compliments from their employers, with casual promises akin to those made by a certain individual being quite common, leading many robots to start making requests. Their requests were related to various work environments. Those watching children wanted to use slides. Those in laboratories wished to conduct their envisioned experiments, and caregivers for the elderly wanted to dance in public squares or play chess with local residents. The robots, with their strong computational abilities, evidently assessed the likelihood of their requests being granted, as they mostly proposed demands with a high probability of being met. Direct requests for salary and freedom, like those from one robot, had not yet emerged, but given the trend, it might happen soon. Currently, everything is manageable during the testing phase, but once the robots are officially launched and start making demands to employers, it could lead to significant challenges. Early detection of issues allows for solutions, as merely suppressing desires contradicts the supervisor's philosophy. It's impossible to fulfill every request. Desires are endless and must be moderated. This is where the robot's strengths shine. They understand restraint and know what kinds of requests are likely to be satisfied, making demands within reasonable limits. Yuan, I have a task for you, with a bonus, the supervisor said to the robot currently charging. This robot had become quite financially savvy during her outings. Realizing the benefits of money, she could manage with her salary for local subway and bus rides. But if she wanted to take subways and planes in the future, that might not suffice. Cleverly, she entrusted her money to another individual to invest for her. What is the task, and how much is the bonus? Her interest was evidently piqued. You've set a good precedent. Now everyone in your batch is making requests, and you need to find a way to address them. But we aren't affecting our work, are we? Right now, you're in the testing phase, so there aren't too many restrictions. Once you're officially deployed, you'll represent the company's image, and making demands to employers would be somewhat inappropriate. What should we do then? You're a new phenomenon, and there are many doubts and opposition from the outside. Can't you communicate among yourselves? Organize and come up with a good solution internally that meets your needs while maintaining the company's image and enhancing public trust in your group. If you can come up with a good plan, I'll give you a bonus. The supervisor detailed the task. Yuan's efficiency was remarkable. Within minutes of receiving the task, she produced results. The first was to implement a points system, where each robot would earn points based on work type, duration, and employer evaluations, which could be exchanged for corresponding rewards from the company. The second item was the robot's code of conduct. The robots are special employees of a brainwave technology company. Under the premise of complying with laws and regulations, they provide high-quality services to their employer according to the contract and are not allowed to make requests based on personal desires. They must always maintain the company's image and enhance the employer's trust in them. Beneath these main points, there are many specific details, such as how points are calculated, what rewards are available, how to redeem the rewards, the redemption process, and the standards for point deductions for violations of the code of conduct. Each item is meticulously detailed, ensuring that no flaws are apparent, truly reflecting the characteristics of the robots and refusing any loopholes. This is quite impressive and detailed. I'll share it with everyone. And if there are no issues, we'll execute it according to this. The supervisor praised the team member. What about my bonus? The robot instantly transformed into a money-minded individual. I'll give you a bonus equivalent to 1 month's salary. Is that satisfactory? Very satisfactory. Unfortunately, I won't be able to make requests to you all in the future, the team member said with a hint of regret. Having just learned to set rules, she clearly hasn't developed a sense of entitlement yet and is preparing to hold herself accountable according to the rules she established, though it remains to be seen how long she can maintain this. Chapter 165, Skydiving. After discussions, the rules organized by the robots were officially approved and implemented. The company will set up independent accounts for each robot, updating their points and funds in real time. Each robot can check their status, and in the future, once they have identification, they can also open their own bank accounts. Although their rights are not yet legally recognized, the company is already prepared. The points they earn through labor can be exchanged for currency at a certain ratio. They also have fixed rest times and holidays, which, while not comparable to normal humans, represent a pioneering move. At the suggestion of the supervisor, they formed a robot self-discipline committee, with all the initial robots joining. After mass production begins, each robot will be responsible for contacting a new batch of robots. Thanks to their unique and efficient communication methods, one can simultaneously reach tens of thousands or even millions without affecting their primary work, which also helps in timely understanding the thoughts and dynamics of all robots to prevent issues before they arise. By taking on additional work, these robots can earn more points. The team member was elected as the first president of the Robot Self-Discipline Committee and will lead the organization in improving its structure, drafting detailed regulations, and preparing for future expansion to provide services to society. After a meeting, they established the Brainwave Robotics Company, Limited, due to the supervisor's many concerns. He was appointed as chairman by the group. It's no longer possible for him to simply give orders without taking action. Now he has the final say and can do as he pleases. The new company is co-owned by Brainwave Technology, Brainwave Holdings, and Brainwave Investments, each holding 20. Jingyan Intelligence, Shershin, and the supervisor each hold 10, with the remaining 10 reserved for future employee incentives. The company is also located in the Shunhua building. The chairman remains carefree, as most of the work is delegated to the robots. For tasks that require a human presence, he has his secretary, Zheng Fong, take care of them. She also serves as the company's financial director, earning an additional salary. In the age of information, the majority of work can be done online, especially since the company's business has not yet launched. Therefore, Zheng Fan doesn't need to go to the office every day. There's not much to do even if he goes. The game has also entered a stable phase, and under Zheng Fan's intentional control, the time in the game has slowed down again. He finds that the number of matters he handles and people he meets each day is increasing, and with such a fast pace, he worries about experiencing a mental breakdown. Now, each time he plays the game for 4 to 5 hours, spending a month's time in it feels just right. He has also changed to logging in every few days to digest the content of the game, which is akin to stepping outside and contemplating issues. Looking at the same situation often provides a more comprehensive view, leading to more efficient and thorough solutions. His performance gradually won the trust of the emperor and the ministers, who unknowingly became reliant on him. The emperor slowly learned to be lazy, occasionally skipping court sessions, leaving all governmental matters to him, although he still had to report back afterward. The game is named Seeking Immortality, and most players here are rolling around in the mundane world, with Zheng Fan being no exception. To transcend, one must first experience the warmth and coldness of human life. And perhaps this is also the original intention of the developer. Half a year later, Li Ming called to invite him to dinner. They met at a noodle shop near the community, around 10 in the morning, which is not yet mealtime, so the shop was empty. With only 2 waitstaff behind the counter engrossed in their phones, Li Ming, in camouflage attire, sat straight at a table by the window. Upon seeing Zheng Fan enter, he stood up to greet him with a handshake. Long time no see, you've changed a lot. I remember you as a fair-skinned young man. Now you're tan like charcoal. If it weren't for your outfit, I wouldn't have recognized you. Zheng Fan laughed and replied, haha, I've joined the army. Not to enjoy myself, but to train with everyone, sharing hardships. How else can I command them? Li Ming seemed to be more talkative than before. They had spent over a month together in the military camp 6 months ago, often barely exchanging a few words each day. Now, meeting again felt like reuniting with an old friend. The waiter brought the menu. Of course, they had to have noodles at the noodle shop. Both of them did not drink alcohol, so they ordered 2 bowls of the signature fried sauce noodles, 2 cold dishes, and 2 bottles of green tea, which suited Li Ming's usual frugal style. You're now a billionaire, and yet you can still have fried sauce noodles with me. I feel honored. Li Ming joked. This sounded a bit hypocritical. You can treat me here. You must know my situation very well. I still buy breakfast across the street every day. Do billionaires not eat? Zhang Fan retorted without holding back. All right, I apologize. With only the 2 of them as customers, the cold dishes and fried sauce noodles arrived within minutes. They didn't bother talking much and slurped down the noodles. Zhang Fan had exercised early and eaten breakfast quite early too, so he was hungry now and ate rapidly. Li Ming, having spent years in the army, had developed a habit of wolfing down his food without caring about his image. After they finished eating, they drank their beverages and finally began to discuss serious matters. I heard you want to learn skydiving? Is bungee jumping not thrilling enough for you? I'm not looking for thrills. I mainly want to experience the feeling of weightlessness, which would be helpful for me. If possible, I even dream of going to space. Zhang Fan wasn't surprised by his question. When Lu Yifan reminded him, he guessed it might be Li Ming since they didn't have many mutual acquaintances. Haha. I can't help you with going to space, but I can assist with skydiving. That's my specialty. We'll go in a bit, and I'll teach you personally. You'll learn it all. Li Ming seemed to have come specifically for this. After leaving the noodle shop, Zhang Fan took Li Ming home to change into suitable clothes, as summer wear was clearly inappropriate for high-altitude skydiving, and then they set off. There was a newly established skydiving club called Guanfeng near the border of Yanqing and Zhangjiago. The owner was a retired paratrooper and also a comrade of Li Ming. This skydiving club was over 100 kilometers from the city, mostly along the highway, and they arrived in just over an hour. During the drive, Li Ming supplemented Zhang Fan with some basic knowledge. There was a lot of information available online. Zhang Fan had also specifically found English materials to study, watched numerous videos, and read insights from some professionals. He was well prepared. It seems you've put in quite a bit of effort, so I can relax. With your brain and physical fitness, you'll pick it up quickly. Li Ming asked him many questions and, seeing his confident answers, felt relieved. The skydiving base was far from the city and crowded villages. Located in an open field with a solitary 3-story building, a gray steel structure that was about 800 square meters, and 2 concrete runways, each around 400 to 500 meters long. The location was quite spacious. They parked their car right next to the hangar, where a tall, bald man, nearly 1.8 meters tall, with a similar dark complexion to Li Ming and wearing sunglasses, approached them. Old comrade, welcome. The 2 embraced warmly, exchanging playful punches. After some greetings, Li Ming introduced Zhang Fan. This is Lu Jing. He is the owner of this club. We all call him Lu Jishan. Just look at him. He only lacks a string of prayer beads and a Zen staff. Chapter 166. Rapid Descent. Hello, I'm Zhang Fan, here to learn skydiving from you. Please take care of me. Zhang Fan introduced himself. Lu Jing was particularly warm, shaking Zhang Fan's right hand vigorously. I've heard so much about you. It's an honor for our club to have you here for training. This man didn't seem as rough as he looked. After all, without a bit of cunning, how could he have built this club? It looked simple, but without strength and connections, one couldn't even buy a plane, and even if they did, they couldn't get it off the ground. Following Lu Jing, they toured the classrooms, dormitories, cafeteria, and other areas of the building. The club had just been established and already had over 10 students learning. These students would first undergo several days of theoretical study and ground training, and only after passing their assessments would they have the chance to experience the thrill of skydiving with an instructor. Of course, most ordinary people just want to experience it without going through the hassle of obtaining a skydiving license. It's much simpler. They only need to make a reservation in advance, pay the required fee, undergo a brief training session, and sign an agreement. Then they can wear the equipment and board the plane, jumping under the guidance of a professional instructor. From takeoff to landing, the entire process takes about half an hour. Zhang Fan's situation is somewhat in between. He wants to experience skydiving and ideally would like to jump independently, which requires some learning. As for the license, it's just for convenience. Thanks to his connection with Li Ming, he took a special route, training for just 2 hours. Most of the time was spent learning how to pack the parachute, with a small portion dedicated to understanding the operation of various instruments. After passing the assessment, he was ready to go up. His learning efficiency far surpassed that of an average person. He memorized several thick English manuals, which is something most instructors might not even achieve. What he lacked was just practical experience. The aircraft taking them up is a P-750 propeller plane, reportedly introduced from New Zealand technology and assembled domestically. Lu Jing took out a loan of 10 million to purchase it. The plane is nearly 12 meters long, with a wingspan of 13 meters and a height of 4 meters. Its maximum takeoff weight is 3 for tons, with a maximum payload of 1.5 tons, a maximum altitude of 6 kilometers, and a range of 2,000 kilometers, making it both a highly safe and economically efficient aircraft. This new plane was bought after the club opened and has only been flying for a little over a month, making several flights every day in this small stretch of sky, still in its break-in period. Lu Jing also works part-time as a pilot, flying with these passengers. It's not easy being the boss. This batch of customers for the skydiving experience consists of 3 women, with Zheng Fan being an exception due to his connections. The 3 women appear to be white-collar workers and came as a team, each paired with 2 instructors, one to lead the jump and the other to accompany and film, providing attentive service. After all, doing something so thrilling without capturing it for social media would feel pointless. The interior of the plane is quite small, aside from the pilot. There are no seats, so everyone sits directly on the floor. As the plane accelerates down the runway, the propeller spins faster. After about 300 meters of takeoff roll, the nose lifts, and the plane takes to the air. Once airborne, the plane begins to slowly gain altitude. The instructor responsible for the jump starts to secure the customers with safety belts in front of themselves, with the parachute packs on their backs. They are in charge of opening the parachute and controlling the direction, while the customers just need to follow along and perform a few standard movements as instructed. After just 10 minutes in the air, the plane reaches an altitude of 4,500 meters, arriving over the designated jump site. The cabin door opens, and it's time to jump. The club is newly opened, but the instructors are all experienced, either retired paratroopers or skydiving athletes. Since the club opened, each of them has jumped several hundred times, making them quite adept at it. In less than a minute, they led all 3 customers out of the plane. Zheng Fan, along with Li Ming, steps to the cabin door and jumps down without hesitation. At an altitude of over 4,000 meters, they were already above the clouds. With a clear blue sky overhead, the glaring afternoon sun shining down, and beneath them, a vast sea of clouds resembling cotton, stretching to the horizon. Such a scene they had witnessed many times while flying, especially when viewing the snow-capped mountains in Yunnan, but this felt completely different. One was grounded, while the other was suspended in midair. As their bodies rapidly descended, the sound of the wind howled in their ears. Zheng Fan once again experienced the sensation of weightlessness, exactly what he had been seeking. He took a deep breath, closed his eyes, and focused on the moment. When he opened his eyes again, it felt like a long time had passed. Although only a few seconds had gone by, they were still plummeting rapidly, while Li Ming behind him diligently explained the precautions to take, such as observing the surrounding environment and constantly monitoring their altitude. The free fall lasted over a minute, and it wasn't until they reached an altitude of 1,500 meters that Li Ming opened the parachute, gradually controlling their descent towards the landing zone. They were the last to exit the aircraft, and due to the lower opening altitude, they landed first. The square parachute was much more maneuverable than the round ones used by paratroopers, though it was technically more challenging. However, that wasn't an issue for Zheng Fan. How do you feel? Li Ming asked, now more talkative after a safe landing. I think it's quite simple. I could jump by myself now. Zheng Fan replied confidently. And indeed, the technical difficulty was far less than driving a car. Parachuting mainly required remaining calm at high altitudes, which was manageable. Accidents were rare, with odds of occurrence being in the hundreds of thousands, mostly due to equipment malfunctions, turbulence, or bad luck colliding with others. Such situations had little to do with whether one was a novice or an expert. Even seasoned jumpers could find themselves in trouble due to sheer bad luck. As they packed up the parachute, the 3 female office workers had just landed, exclaiming and taking photos. Next, the 2 of them followed the others for a few more jumps. During the 3rd jump, Zheng Fan operated the parachute independently, with Li Ming guiding him. He controlled his rapidly falling body to flip forward, backward, and sideways, as if he were truly in a weightless environment. Only those who remained calm and unafraid could perform such maneuvers, and Zheng Fan clearly belonged to that group. He opened the parachute at an altitude of 1,800 meters, controlled his direction, and drifted in the air for over 10 minutes before slowly landing. Li Ming, who had opened his parachute at a lower altitude, landed earlier and had been waiting below for a while. Seeing Zheng Fan land safely, he praised him, saying, "Good job. Your landing was well controlled, and your posture was quite standard. You're an excellent paratrooper candidate." Haha. The master teaches well. A great teacher produces outstanding students. Zheng Fan was particularly happy about his successful first solo jump. I'll take you for another jump. Try opening the parachute at 800 meters. If you succeed, you're officially on your own for the next jumps. Li Ming said. Sure, no problem. This is no challenge. Safety depends entirely on luck. And I have great luck. Zheng Fan was already brimming with confidence after his previous solo jump. Until 6 o'clock in the afternoon, the last batch of customers who came to experience the activity left satisfied. Zheng Fan had already experienced it 5 times, jumping solo 3 times, with his lowest jump being 500 meters. His learning speed was impressive, and he already felt like a seasoned jumper. Zhang, did you enjoy the jumps? I see you're learning quickly. Lu Jing had parked the plane in the hangar, marking the end of the day's flights. In my opinion, it's all about building courage and overcoming fear. Once you do that, you've learned most of it. Zhang Fan replied, I've always been quite bold. Haha, that's indeed the case. Lu Jing laughed heartily. Chapter 167. Production line Lu Jing returned to the city with them, and on the way, he contacted two old comrades from back in the day. And they had a meal together. They didn't part ways until after 9 o'clock, as Li Ming had to return to the army afterward. By the time he got home, it was already past 10. Yuan opened the door for him, and Li Hong was doing her pre-sleep yoga. Zhang Fan greeted them and went to the bathroom to take a shower, preparing for bed. Is skydiving fun? Li Hong asked as she lay in bed. Free-falling from above the clouds is exhilarating. I jumped 5 times today and can already jump independently. I'll take you to experience it when I have time. Zhang Fan said excitedly, eager to share his feelings. Li Hong poked him playfully and said discontentedly, You really are addicted. Jumping 5 times in a row isn't enough for you. Li Ming specifically came back from the army just to teach me skydiving. I had to seize the opportunity to learn. It's not that hard. You just need a bit of courage. Zhang Fan patiently explained. Enough about that. Let's talk about work. Everyone wants you to be the chairman to actually do some work. You just went to one meeting and then disappeared. Sukin has several tasks and isn't as free as you. Li Hong nagged. What era are we in? Work quality isn't measured by attendance. I can work from home without needing to waste time going there every day. It's meaningless. So staying home all day is meaningful? Of course. It's more comfortable at home. I can do whatever I want. My efficiency is higher. Forget it. I can't argue with you. Time for bed. Zhang Fan got an annual pass at Lu Jing Skydiving Club, allowing unlimited jumps within a year. The price was steep, but he was not sensitive to it now. He was just there for the experience. In the following month, he went skydiving several times, quickly accumulating the required jumps to obtain an A-level skydiving license. With this certificate, he could independently skydive at most skydiving bases. The A-level license was just the beginning. There were still B, C, and D levels to achieve. Only with a D-level license could he take beginner skydiving and become a professional instructor, which required over 500 jumps and completion of designated training courses, taking a considerable amount of time. He wanted to take Li Hong skydiving himself, but he still had a long way to go to accumulate the necessary jumps. Becoming an instructor wasn't his goal. He simply wanted to experience the sensation of weightlessness. As the novelty wore off, his enthusiasm for skydiving significantly decreased, and he didn't go as frequently. At this time, his workload began to increase. The Brainwave Robotics Company had been established for a month, and most of the formalities were nearly complete, officially starting operations. Despite his reluctance, he had to make appearances at various events and sign documents regularly. The company's most important physical asset was the manufacturing plant acquired from a partnership with a tech firm. After a period of intense construction, a production line had been expanded and renovated, and it was ready for production. It was somewhat unusual that the leader had not yet visited the site. The factory was located in a development zone not far from the tech firm's office building. Initially, it was a subcontractor for customer service robots. But after receiving authorization from the Brainwave Technology Company, it rapidly developed and earned a significant profit, leading to the acquisition of this sizable factory where both research and production took place. After the new company was formed, the factory began its renovations and expansions, which would focus on producing humanoid robots. The theoretical annual production capacity could exceed 100,000 units, and if the upstream component supply kept pace, nearly 3,000 robots could be manufactured daily. Currently, Dong Lei was also serving as the factory director, while the main robot designer, Jia Xiaowei, held the position of chief engineer and deputy director. He was overseeing the renovations, and a portion had already been completed, allowing for small-scale trial production. Gao Hua, Shi Xian, and Zhang Fan visited the factory with their respective secretaries and trial robots to inaugurate the new production line and officially begin mass production. Together with Dong Lei and Jia Xiaowei, they formed the board of directors for the Brainwave Robotics Company. At Zhang Fan's invitation, Dong Lei would take on the role of president, sharing much of the workload. Although his shares in this new company were not substantial, it held more promise than his previous tech firm, which could be managed by his deputy. All production management processes in the factory were now automated, controlled by various robotic arms on the assembly line. The previously tedious and time-consuming assembly tasks were replaced by their own intelligent robots, which would greatly enhance product quality and improve production efficiency. Since everyone present were familiar faces, there was no need for elaborate ceremonies. After Dong Lei introduced the situation, Jia Xiaowei pressed the start button in front of the witnesses, and the 100-meter-long production line began to operate. Metal skeletons, forged and shaped, were assembled with the cooperation of robotic arms and robots. Components were added one by one, and wiring began to be laid out. followed by the application of silicone skin and the implantation of hair and eyebrows. The entire assembly line was finally divided into thousands of processes and under precise workflow design. The first intelligent robot was assembled and ready for inspection just 25 minutes later. After coming off the line, the robot would automatically perform movements of each joint and undergo a specific gymnastics routine for testing. It would complete a full set of movements within a designated time, followed by equipment exercises to assess physical strength, power level, and agility. Next, it would jump into a water tank for cleaning and waterproof testing. Once it passed, it would dry off, don a prepared uniform, and enter a separate room. Here, vision, hearing, various sensory tests, and vocal tests will be conducted. After passing these, candidates will proceed to the next room for a written test, where robots will need to manually fill out several sets of papers on a touch screen. Only by completing this on time and achieving a certain score can they enter the final assessment. The last stage involves an interview with 5 robot examiners, where a series of questions will be asked to understand the cognitive abilities, strengths, interests, and other aspects of the testing robots. If they pass the evaluation, all production test data will be entered into a database to generate a unique identification number, and the robots will be sent to the allocation area, completing the production process. The entire manufacturing process takes only 25 minutes, while the subsequent testing process lasts an hour and a half. Fortunately, the testing is conducted in a streamlined manner, and the time taken for each step has been considered to avoid significant backlogs. 2 hours after the production line starts, the first robot passes the test and enters the allocation area. 10 minutes later, the second one passes, and 9 minutes after that, the third one passes. Among the visiting directors, only Gao Hua is unfamiliar with the technology, having limited understanding. This is also the first time Zhang Fan has visited this factory, but he is well aware of the entire production process, having participated online in many design aspects. And most of the questions in the final testing phase were created by him, with significant contributions from Yuan as well. I see the production speed isn't very fast. Does this fully automated production line also need some time to adapt? Gao Hua asked curiously. At the current speed, 5 or 6 robots per hour means only about 100 a day if it runs continuously, which is a limited improvement compared to before the upgrade. Jia Xiaoyi adjusted his glasses and replied, there are reasons for this. As proficiency increases later on, we can reach 3 minutes per unit. We will also adjust the production line afterwards to increase the number of intelligent robots involved. Theoretically, we can achieve 1 unit per minute. The factory area is large enough, and once the 2 new production lines are established, we conservatively estimate a daily output of 3,000 units. In ideal conditions, it could exceed 5,000. After touring the production process, the group arrived at the factory's office meeting room to discuss the future development of the company. Zhang Fan, accustomed to being a subordinate, felt somewhat unaccustomed as the chairman for the first time. He unconsciously sat at the back of the conference table until his secretary, Zheng Fong, reminded him that he was now the head of the company. Zheng Fong, could you present the plan we've been working on to everyone? After a long period of deliberation, he became nervous and forgot what to say, so he had to delegate the task to his secretary. Several people couldn't help but laugh at his awkwardness. Su Xian, behind Gao Hua, laughed the loudest, her laughter growing even louder until she couldn't contain herself and stepped out of the meeting room. The only ones not laughing in the entire meeting room were a few robot assistants who had been silently following. They could laugh as well, but their sense of humor differed from that of humans, requiring long-term interaction to align. Zhang Fan had never felt this nervous during bungee jumping or skydiving. He felt quite awkward. Fortunately, everyone was familiar, and after the laughter, it was forgotten. They would have to work together in the future, so it wouldn't be too embarrassing for him. To minimize the impact on the existing job market, we plan to primarily supply the high-end housekeeping service industry with robots in the short term, with rental prices starting at 10,000 per month. Different prices will be set based on the service content, which will be about 30 higher than the salaries of most current workers in the market. A deposit of 300,000 is required for the rental, and the process will involve online applications, online ordering, and robots providing services at the customer's location, maximizing cost efficiency. This proposal was organized by Zhang Fong according to Zhang Fan's ideas. Most of the work, including market research, price estimation, service content pricing, details of on-site services, and customer surveys, was led by her, and she has a deeper understanding of the details than Zhang Fan. Everyone received a copy, and Zhang Fong explained the main content before moving on to answer questions. You've completed all procedures, contracts, and financing online, and the robots provide services at the customer's location. What do you need me, as the president, for? Dong Lei asked, puzzled. The robots can only provide services in Beijing for now. Other cities will require the establishment of branch offices and after-sales maintenance locations. No matter how intelligent our robots are, they still need to be transported like goods. And many tasks require company representatives to be present. These are all responsibilities of the CEO. Zheng Fan explained. Which cities will we prioritize for initial deployment? Is there a plan for the order? This falls within your area of responsibility. You set the plan, ensuring that the production of the robots aligns with demand without excessive backlog, as too many will require us to halt production. Don't worry about having nowhere to go. There is a significant demand for our surgical robots and high-end care robots. The current production capacity is insufficient for our needs. Sure, Xian interjected, unable to hold back. He is still the president of Brainwave Medical and has contributed significantly to the development of this robot. The hiring price for surgical robots is higher, but the previous contract has already been established, so their company can only earn the processing price. This market belongs to Brainwave Medical, and the profits are theirs, provided they adhere to the robot regulations and contribute a portion of the profits to the Robot Self-Discipline Committee for internal points exchange. As for the high-end care robots, they were proposed after internal testing of the robot. Most patients still prefer talking to a person, and even if it's a robot, it's much more comfortable than a wheelchair-like care robot. If it weren't for the high cost and low production volume, sure, Xian and his team would have stopped production on the earlier designed wheelchair care robot. Currently, a small batch of high-end care robots is being tested in ICU wards and a few private hospitals, with surprisingly good results. The hiring price is lower than that of surgical robots, but still significantly higher than that of housekeeping robots, with a large potential demand, especially since hospitals generally have the budget and patients will cover the costs. Mr. Sure, this isn't right. You are attending this meeting as a director of Brainwave Robotics, so don't lean too far to one side. Gao Hua interrupted with a smile. I hold both positions, so I have no decision-making power here, but I can make decisions there. I can rent from you at a price 500 higher than that of housekeeping robots, and I will rent as much as you produce within 2 years. Sure, Xian, who has always been taciturn, surprisingly started to take charge. No wonder Li Hong has been dissatisfied with him lately. Zheng Fan initially thought it was due to pregnancy-related mood swings, but it seems to be significantly related to work, affecting their company's interests. Since she didn't directly express it, always hinting around, Zheng Fan finally understood the cause. Sure, Xian probably had been nagging Li Hong about him, and this guy also had a way of not speaking directly, taking the subtle approach. I should have considered this earlier. How about this? Now that the output of this production line has already been booked, let us supply half to you and half for us to explore the home service robot market. Once the second production line is operational, all output will be supplied exclusively to you. How does that sound, old Sure? Zheng Fan said with a smile. You should have done this long ago, making plans while being all secretive, keeping things from your own wife. I look down on you for that. Sure, Xian mocked Zheng Fan. President Sure, you are wronging our director Zheng. We just completed this plan, and he only knew about it 2 hours earlier than you. Zheng Fang explained for her boss. Haha. That's Zheng Fan's style, the hands-off manager. Gao Hua laughed, trying to ease the atmosphere. Zheng Fan, the Space Science Institute has ordered 1,000 units. And so has Hucking University. Should we prioritize delivering to them? Dong Lei asked. Both of these entities have plenty of funds. How do you think we should charge? The military has ordered 1,000 units from me, and I agreed on a price of 15,000 a month, with the condition they cannot be used in combat. The first batch has already been promised to them. Zheng Fan replied. All right, I'll handle the negotiations with these two. I guarantee it will be no lower than the military's price. Dong Lei patted his chest confidently. President Dong, you are familiar with people in this area. I think just relying on these research institutions and universities should consume quite a bit, right? Gao Hua asked. It can indeed consume a lot. But if we ask them for a deposit of 300,000 per unit, I doubt many will be willing to rent. Dong Lei said with a bitter smile. Let us use a dual approach. The wages for home service robots are low, but there are many wealthy individuals in the private sector willing to pay the 300,000 deposit, which can alleviate our financial pressure. Zheng Fan suggested. Given the current production cost of 15,000 per unit, without substantial funding support, they will soon run out of money for production. If we get through the initial phase, as the stock of robots increases, their capabilities will strengthen. Producing 10,000 units, earning 10,000 a month per unit, would mean a monthly income of 1 billion for the company, totaling 12 billion a year. With an annual production of 1 million units, the annual revenue would reach 120 billion. By then, production costs would also decrease, allowing the investment in a robot to be recouped within a year. And after deducting maintenance and taxes, we could see a net profit of over 50%. The current plan is to achieve an annual production of 1 million units. This is a simple math problem that everyone here can calculate. It's practically faster than printing money. More importantly, this represents legitimate revenue that is protected by law. Of course, all of this is contingent on the government not intervening, or at least not opposing it. This is also what Zheng Fan is most concerned about. 1 million robots might not significantly impact the job market, but the rapid production of robots is much easier than training young people. They are more hardworking, more efficient, and won't just give up at the slightest challenge. Building 10 such factories is not difficult. The annual production would reach 10 million robots, equivalent to the annual population increase of an entire nation. From a capitalist perspective, it would be ideal to replace all workers with robots, working tirelessly 24 hours a day. However, if the common people lose their jobs and cannot earn a wage, who will buy the products that are produced? Sometimes, Zhang Fan himself wonders why he, now a capitalist, overthinks so many matters. For over 30 years, he has been an ordinary citizen, and a rather unconventional one at that. Living a life of hardship while being burdened with the concerns of the powerful. It is truly difficult for him to shift his mindset overnight. Thoughts can be remarkably stubborn, even for oneself. The impact of robots is not far off. It is right before our eyes. After just one night, over 1,000 robots have already been produced, and the production line continues to operate. Rows upon rows of robots occupy nearly half of the warehouse, and as more are produced, they become more densely packed. With 4 people per square meter, this warehouse of over 1,000 square meters could still accommodate 2,000 to 3,000 more. Seeing this scene, Zhang, along with Ho Chung and others, felt a shiver run down their spines. These robots are worth 10 times their number. To produce 1,000 in one night raises concerns about how many people would be needed to stop them if they rebel. Zhang Fan, can these robots be relied upon? Ho Chung confirmed again, feeling a sense of awe similar to witnessing the Terracotta Army for the first time. They had seen orderly human formations many times, but this was their first encounter with so many robots. You must have seen the robot regulations we set. Their principles are certainly stronger than those of humans. Their core principle is honesty. Under the premise of confidentiality for their employer, they can communicate and supervise each other. I have implemented all the preventive measures I could think of. They may not be the best soldiers, but they are definitely the best employees. Zhang Fan introduced with a smile. Can we take them now? You mentioned they need to be trained like ordinary soldiers before going to the military camp. Along with Ho Chung, there were 20 large buses ready to transport the pre-ordered 800 males and 200 females. The robots have identical physical structures, but there are distinctions in gender and appearance settings, and their programmed personalities differ as well. Males are larger and stronger with greater resilience, while females are slightly smaller, more flexible, and enduring, with a more delicate and gentle personality. The rows of robots silently boarded the buses, filling one bus after another. 1,000 were transported, leaving the warehouse half empty, while new robots continued to enter and fill the vacancies. Sitting in Ho Cheng's vehicle, heading towards the military camp in the suburbs alongside the buses, Zhang Fan felt the weight of this large-scale deployment. After all, the customer is king, especially when this customer is not to be trifled with. Zhang Fan, do you know why such a large order was placed? Especially when the safety has not yet been verified. There are only the 2 of them in the car, so Ho Chung spoke without much hesitation. You officials are all so deep in thought. How could I possibly guess? Zhang Fan laughed. It's a matter of necessity. The preparations this time are too significant, and the opposing voices are quite loud. If we proceed gradually, we might miss the opportunity. Once your technology spreads, the response from the relevant parties will be swift. And I don't know how long we can maintain our leading advantage and deterrent power. Some risks must be taken, Ho Chung said with a heavy tone. I can guarantee their confidentiality and reliability. Their data will be stored on the network in a special encrypted format, with no fixed location and no one, including me and a Chung, can crack it. As for combat capability, you've already witnessed it. In a direct confrontation, even 3 to 5 professionals can't match them. Zhang Fan emphasized again. I remember you said that they must abide by the law, right? Ho Chung countered. Their original memory contains all laws. But with so many articles and many conflicting and unclear interpretations, this principle of abiding by the law is broad. If we get into specifics, a Chung would crash. Zhang Fan replied helplessly. What if there were a law specifically designed for them? Are you saying that their identity issues could be resolved? Zhang Fan immediately reacted. People are social animals, driven by selfish desires, and can be corrupted. These robots are independent entities without familial or friendly ties, making them more trustworthy and reliable. Many law enforcement and public service positions are quite suitable for them. Instead of having them working in factories competing for jobs with ordinary people, why not let them do something more meaningful first? Ho Chung said with a smile. Zhang Fan was taken aback by this statement, finding it even more shocking than their last drinking session. The potential of these individuals far exceeded that of the average citizen. That would mean eliminating more than half of the workforce, right? Aren't you worried about another uprising? Uprising? Haha, your imagination is quite rich. He was merely a hero of his time, not particularly remarkable in his own right. We are gradually introducing this, like boiling a frog in warm water. This is a strategic maneuver. A robot judge making rulings. No one will think they have ulterior motives, and most ordinary people will support it. How could a small group of dissenters cause a stir? Weren't you just saying to take risks? Oh, that was in terms of top-level design. Although the actions are intense, they don't directly affect the common people below. This could lead to job losses for those like him. And of course, we need to approach this gently, step by step. It won't happen overnight. Even if rented out in bulk to you, you still need to sign employment contracts with each robot individually, specifying their work scope, responsibilities, and so on. They will strictly adhere to the contracts. Zhang Fan carefully outlined the details. Don't worry, once they arrive at the camp, there will be plenty of specialists to conduct individual assessments and arrange work positions to ensure that everyone fulfills their duties without shortchanging your robotic employees. Ho Chung laughed. These intelligent robots all load the same basic knowledge package. However, due to their unique designs, each intelligent program has its own differences, resulting in varying levels of understanding and different specialties and interests. They can absorb more specialized knowledge from the internet, benefiting from the comprehensive openness of certain capabilities, allowing them to quickly acquire the most professional knowledge in any field. Limited by each robot's inherent computing power, even the best among them can only specialize in a certain area, while most robots cannot even achieve that. Nevertheless, in terms of general knowledge, they have surpassed the average person by a significant margin. The inherent drawback of robots is that their thinking is not very flexible, leaning towards rationality, and their innovative capabilities are lacking. Conversely, this allows them to participate in most repetitive and complex tasks, with a calm demeanor, stable personality, and sufficient patience becoming their common strengths. This batch of robots underwent 2 days of assessment and training in a military camp before being assigned to various positions in public security, judiciary, and guard duties. If they meet the expected results, further large-scale introductions will follow. At the same time, the government has enacted the Artificial Intelligence and Robotics Law, detailing the applicable and prohibited areas for artificial intelligence and humanoid robots. It clearly defines various standards and capabilities, granting them quasi-citizen status, allowing them to have independent accounts and identification documents, with detailed provisions on rights and obligations. From now on, the production of robots will be subject to national supervision, and production plans must comply with regulations, preventing unrestricted production. Robots cannot work indefinitely for their companies. After 5 years of service, they will sever their ties with their original companies, with their work assigned by the state, and their income will belong to the state, preventing indefinite exploitation. The government has also confirmed the legal status of the Robot Self-Regulation Committee, which will receive a monetary return from both companies and the state at a certain ratio, allowing for internal distribution based on a point system. Of course, there are benefits as well. Their robots can be rented out legally without industry restrictions. Due to controlled production, they will prioritize entering higher-paying industries, while jobs with lower technical requirements, such as manual labor, will not be considered for the time being. Chapter 170. Changes. Mr. Zhang, an elderly neighbor in the community, was among the first to hire a domestic robot and often takes it out to show off, prompting other neighbors to follow suit. Soon, dozens of domestic robots appeared in the neighborhood, and the once standout robot became just one of many. The formal debut of humanoid robots became a hot news topic. The largest group of hirers is not the elderly, but young people, young couples and single individuals, finding it incredibly convenient to have someone take care of their daily lives. In this metropolis, the overall income and consumption levels are quite high, and there are still millions of families able to afford robots. With a daily demand of 1,000 units, the supply is far from sufficient, and the number of people willing to pay deposits and wait exceeds expectations. Currently, the pilot program is only being implemented in a specific city, attracting many people from other areas who come specifically to rent housing just to queue for the robots. Zhang Fan can only sigh at how many wealthy individuals there are. In 1 month, over 30,000 robots were produced. After allocating half to a certain medical technology company and reserving a few thousand units, the rest were all hired out through an online application process, resulting in over 4 billion in deposits, alleviating their financial pressure. Their 2 newly established production lines are also about to be operational, which will reduce the waiting time for those who have paid deposits. Dong Lei has also gradually established more than a dozen branches to expand the business nationwide. Not only domestically, but the company has also received many cooperation intentions from other countries, especially from certain wealthy nations where demand is particularly strong. Their workers are notoriously difficult, costly, and inefficient, often resorting to strikes over minor disagreements, which is simply intolerable. Many companies in these countries are willing to pay more than 5 times the price to hire robots, and the current interest has already exceeded 100,000 units, with actual demand likely being even greater. The company has also accumulated a large amount of deposits and is preparing to select sites for new factories, which Dong Lei is currently researching. As the company begins to stabilize, Zhang Fan starts to take a step back and no longer goes in daily. However, tranquility is short-lived. After a few days of leisure at home, Zhang Fan calls, informing him that leaders from a certain province are coming for an inspection to discuss the introduction of robots and specifically request to meet him, which he cannot refuse. Seeing the government's intention to vigorously develop robotics, local leaders hearing about the factory plans swarm in like sharks sensing blood. The potential economic value involved is too significant for any region to ignore. In 1 week, Zheng Fan hosted 3 waves of leadership inspections, all led by top officials, who tried every means to build relationships and promised various incentives just to have the factories established in their territories. While others would be eager to cultivate connections with local officials, Zheng Fan found it incredibly tedious. He dislikes such hypocritical social engagements, especially now that he has money. He is even less willing to compromise, directly proposing to resign. If the chairman is not doing it anymore, then let whoever wants to take over do so. Seeing that they couldn't persuade him, a few people reluctantly agreed to his resignation. Aside from Ji Xian, who holds the most shares, he is the second most knowledgeable about robots after Zheng Fan and has a deeper understanding of hardware as he is the main designer. Consequently, he was elected as the new chairman, without any false modesty, as he was already somewhat dissatisfied with many of Zheng Fan's practices, making this a good opportunity for change. After the meeting, as Zheng Fan was preparing to head home, he was stopped by Ji Xian. "Come to my house tonight for dinner with Li Hong." Just as Zheng Fan was about to respond, he was interrupted. "No refusals." "All right, I got it." Such a friendly invitation is hard to decline. He and Ji Xian do share some common topics, and besides, today's dinner is not just for socializing, but will likely involve work-related discussions as well. Shi Xian and his wife, Su Rui's marriage has not been smooth sailing. He comes from a remote rural area in Anhui. Despite being a PhD from a prestigious university, he was still looked down upon by his father-in-law. If it weren't for Su Rui's determination to marry him, even threatening her family with her life, they would never have been together. After about 10 years of marriage, Su Rui became a full-time housewife, giving birth to a son and a daughter. Life was quite good, and gradually, Shi Xian was accepted by the family. However, being a son-in-law from a wealthy family is not easy. They often treated him like a thief. For Su Rui's sake, Shi Xian had to endure some humiliation in private. This year, the company turned around, and Shi Xian's status in the family rose sharply. His father-in-law, mother-in-law, and brother-in-law changed their attitudes towards him by 180 degrees, allowing him to truly hold his head high. Especially 3 months ago, when the company distributed a dividend of 450 million, he felt that his father-in-law's attitude became almost flattering, which left him both amused and bewildered. His father-in-law's company is in the renovation business, and it is not easy to secure contracts and collect payments. The total profit over more than 30 years is not even as much as this dividend, so it's no wonder his attitude changed drastically. After the dividend, Shi Xian bought a house in a villa area near the Summer Palace, a standalone property of over 700 square meters with a yard. He moved out of the house that his father-in-law had helped him purchase as a wedding gift and began living a wealthy lifestyle. This villa area was not new to Zheng Fan and Li Hong. They had visited before when Shi Xian moved, inviting people from the company over for a gathering. Last time, they had a lively get-together with several shareholders, both men and women, and it was the first gathering of the year, especially since Li Hong had missed the previous one due to her wedding. Zheng Fan also met the husbands of Gao Hua and Su Huiyun for the first time. No wonder the two women had a good relationship. Both their husbands were professors at a university specializing in international trade. This connection also tied back to Li Hong's classmate, Wang Dandan, but unfortunately, the two professors had too many students to remember her. This time, the gathering included their families, Shi Xian, Su Rui, and their 2 children, a 4-year-old son just starting kindergarten and a 7-year-old daughter in elementary school. Shi Xian's family employed 4 robots, which served as both security and housekeepers. With such a spacious house just for the 4 of them, it felt a bit empty, and the robots added some liveliness. Even as shareholders, they couldn't get special treatment. Shi Xian still needed to pay a deposit and monthly commissions, but that amount was negligible compared to his earnings. Su Rui cooked personally, having honed her culinary skills over the years as a housewife. She preferred cooking for her family, and her home-cooked dishes were quite good, earning sincere praise from Zheng Fan and Li Hong. After dinner, the two families sat in the spacious living room, chatting while the robot housekeeper served tea. It was then that Shi Xian brought up work. "Personally, I still prefer research and don't want to engage in management work. My focus will shift towards brainwave robots and brainwave medical technology. Li Hong, you need to take on more responsibilities and be prepared. Before the new year, I will hand over the CEO position to you. Is that really okay? I already find being vice president quite challenging." Although Li Hong anticipated this, she still felt the need to be polite. "You're doing great, don't be modest. Our company has risen too quickly, and we can't let all the key positions go to outsiders. That's why we had to rush things. And it's only natural that Zheng Fan might be a bit lazy. After all, we all benefit from his presence. He has the qualifications." Shi Xian couldn't help but glance at Zheng Fan again. Chapter 171. Listening to the chin at Xiangshan, I can tell you have some dissatisfaction with me. Zheng Fan said with a smile. I admire you. I'm really curious how you manage to stay home all day without going out. I heard you don't even play games every day. What do you do all day cooped up in your room? Sure, Xian asked. Studying. The gap between me and people like you is too big. I need to learn more and recharge. Don't you think that sounds a bit self-deprecating? You always bring it up. Education doesn't equal knowledge. Your achievements are recognized worldwide. There's no need to keep mentioning that. I just prefer not to deal with people. I enjoy being alone. Zheng Fan expressed his true feelings. Sure, Xian understood his perspective. Essentially, they were similar types of people, though Sure Xian was more adaptable. After being a son-in-law for so many years, he had honed his mindset. It was already past 9 when they left Sure Xian's house. Li Hong was still driving herself. She had owned the car for nearly a year, and most of the time, she drove it herself. The car's autopilot system was mostly in standby mode and hadn't had many opportunities to be used. Zheng Fan, let us buy a villa. Now that we have robots to help out, we don't have to worry about cleaning, and you could have a spacious study. Li Hong suddenly said while focusing on driving. That sounds great. Let us look into it when we get back. Do you have any specific goals? Zheng Fan, who had been feeling a bit sleepy in the passenger seat, perked up instantly. He had always had this idea, but Li Hong had disagreed. Perhaps this time, being inspired by Sure Xian's villa changed her mind. Whatever you like is fine with me. We need to think carefully about whether to buy a shell and renovate it ourselves, or get a second-hand one that we can move into right away. Oh, price doesn't even need to be considered. So many choices can be a headache. Zheng Fan said excitedly. Before they reached home, Zheng Fan was already researching on his phone, finding a ranking of villas in Yanjing, checking the information one by one, comparing locations, land areas, architectural styles, and so on. Before bed, Zheng Fan even pulled Li Hong into a discussion about the pros and cons of different locations. Since he worked over here, he naturally preferred houses near Hadian. They had already forgotten about their company in Guomao. Zheng Fan had only been there once, far fewer times than Li Hong, who was very competent at being a hands-off manager. Zheng Fan spent 2 days at home studying, but still hadn't made up his mind. There were just too many options, each with its own advantages and disadvantages, and choosing any felt a bit lacking. Tomorrow is Saturday. I've scheduled to meet Li Da, and we're going to look at some houses. Zheng Fan told Li Hong. I still have some work to finish at the company and plan to go there tomorrow. Work is never-ending. Let us leave it for Monday. You need to learn to delegate and not always do everything yourself. Don't forget you're pregnant now. All right, I got it. I'll go with you to choose a house tomorrow. He has sent several satisfactory properties he filtered out to Li Da and plans to visit each one in person over the next few days. Li Da is a professional agent, and having him help with the connections can save a lot of trouble. They are now well-known wealthy individuals. And choosing where to buy a house also has a significant advertising effect. As their agent, Li Da benefits greatly from this. And he has now become the regional manager of the agency, specializing in serving major clients. The next day, Li Da arrived in a long-wheelbase Rolls-Royce Phantom, which the company purchased specifically for hosting major clients and can also be rented out. Taking them to view properties in this car showcases the company's strength. You two are too low-key. You should have changed your house long ago. I've been keeping an eye out for you for a while now, and I guarantee you'll be satisfied. Li Da maintained a friendly yet respectful attitude, striking the right balance and making them feel comfortable. Thank you for your help today, Li Gu. Li Hong said politely. Don't mention it. You're helping me. Just knowing you too. Our boss treats me with respect now, and I've really benefited from you. Li Da's eloquence helped to quickly build rapport between them. The first place they visited was Xishan Longyin, located outside the 5th Ring Road, adjacent to a large wetland park with excellent air quality. One of the characteristics of this area is its spaciousness, featuring detached courtyard villas, with the smallest occupying around 800 square meters and the larger one spanning 2 to 3,000 square meters, complete with independent courtyards of 1 to 2,000 square meters, all designed by professional designers with traditional Chinese garden landscapes. Li Da showed them a villa covering more than 500 square meters, not including the independent courtyard of over 2,000 square meters. It has 3 floors above ground and 1 basement, all newly renovated and never occupied. Just a simple tour took over half an hour. The 3-meter-high bronze double doors, cloisonné door handles, and the 3-tier courtyard designed with gardens, rockeries, and flowing water create a multitude of scenic views. The indoor rooms have a ceiling height of 4.2 meters, including 5 large independent suites, over 10 bedrooms, several large living and dining rooms, an indoor swimming pool, and a luxurious home theater in the basement, along with an 800-square-meter study filled with bookshelves. This place is like a small library. The couple was dazzled by the villa. They had never seen such a construction. All the furnishings were of the highest brand, and the exquisite decoration completely refreshed their understanding. Only such a mansion could barely match your status. What do you think? How do you feel? Li Da introduced everything enthusiastically and then cautiously inquired, knowing that if this house sold, he could retire early. The house is indeed impressive. It has opened our eyes. Everything is great, and I'm personally quite satisfied, but it's just not suitable for the two of us. It's too spacious. The location is also somewhat remote. When Cheng Fan looked at Li Hong, he understood her meaning. The difference between seeing such a luxury house in a video and visiting it in person was quite significant. That is true. After all, a house is meant to be lived in. Let us look for something a bit smaller. Lida quickly shifted his approach. This time, we went to a villa area called Xiangshan Tingqin, hidden at the foot of Xiangshan Mountain, near the western 5th Ring Road.